I hate that fucking voice. All right.
Same.
This is this is Misery Loves Company, a weekly reading series hosted by miserytourism.com. Every Friday, we welcome outsider and transgressive authors to come and share their work with us. Yeah, that's basically the whole deal. So we are going to get going here. First up tonight is Sean, and actually, this is Sean's first time, I think, reading at one of these. You with us, Sean?
I'm here. You hear me all right?
Yeah, loud and clear, perfectly.
Right on.
So you're going to share, I think three short pieces.
That's
One
right.
published in Expat, one published in X-Ray, and one published by us over at Misery Tourism.
That's right.
So I'll drop the links in the chat, and it's all yours.
Cool. Thanks. Thanks, William. Thanks, everybody, for being here. This is cool. Yeah, this is my second time here. I was just a lurker before, so I'm happy to read. So I'm going to read a real short piece that Expat did a couple months ago. It's called The Crowded Afterlife. Two guys from the Sober Living House on Highway 7 were outside the Piggly Wiggly asking for donations. I'd been to a couple AA meetings there and felt usually that I might be killed off by one of the other attendees. Lots of wood paneling, ankle bracelets, violent Jesus talk, and dirty dishes. No women or even a feminine touch. Of course, we're all on our own journey. I didn't donate, though they almost called me out by name. I've reached my free limit with Grace, must now pay and subscribe. So we watched a documentary about a haunted house a few counties away. The argument seemed to be that if there's enough limestone in the ground below, souls spend the afterlife in the house, putting forth the excruciating effort to open doors and push baseballs down the stairs. I don't agree with this night vision argument. My only insight about the afterlife is that it must be filled with so many insects, so many you can't even go outside. That's that one. So this next one is, like William said, one was in X-Ray, one was in Misery Tourism, and one is forthcoming. It'll be quick. So part one, something is knocking. Everything bothers, everything irritates. I'm not afforded the pleasure of anger. Grace and Gabe, after saying something very cutting, Grace, not Gabe, have gone to visit her parents, and I'm home with the dogs in the shower, flooded with the memory of a woman I once slept with who kept demanding, look at me, look at me. It's not like eudaimonic. Then the dogs are going crazy. Something is knocking. They get very protective of the house when I'm in the shower. I don't hurry. And let's be real clear. The dogs we rescued from the shelter did not rescue us. We do the nice, expensive things, and they basically hang out with their small, furry demands. And let's be clear still, what Grace said about the seance I hosted being poorly attended, I was not alone. I decided to wear the Yves Saint Laurent. Recently, I've been favoring the John Varvatos vintage, but the Saint Laurent is Grace's favorite, and I miss her. Her friend Colleen once told me, you don't talk much, but you always smell good. It's Meredith at the door, the woman who tried to kill Gabe. That's not fair. The accident was 3 weeks ago, and he stopped complaining about his bruised spleen. The hood of her car is still dented, and she's holding a plate of cinnamon buns, my favorite. She says, I knew you were home. In the living room, I'm rethinking her. She has the familiar, submissive demeanor of someone trying to get off drugs. The logo of her jeans is outlined in rhinestone, and good God, they're bootcut. She sits inexplicably in the chair possessed by Grace's dead grandmother. Did your family leave you? She says. Permanently? No, I say. Or rather, none of your business. You have pretty eyes, she says. Are they real? Notice she does not apologize. Part two, the goof Meredith. Meredith, the woman who hit Gabe with her car, is still in the living room, sitting in the chair possessed by the spirit of Grace's dead grandmother. She'll be having visions shortly. The stated purpose of her visit is to check in. She is not now part of the family, despite the fact that she brought cinnamon rolls. What is your real purpose, I say? Gabe's spleen is healing just fine. I've been prepared for meanness in this world, but not butt kissing. It struck me as a low form of aggression. But now the ghost of the chair had her, and she is most likely experiencing rural Georgia in the 1950s. She was killing chickens on a farm and being courted by a young man with Dax in his hair. She's being tortured by nostalgic Americana. When the ghost releases her, she starts crying, which is the typical outcome. It's not like we're going to sue you, I said. This is totally unnecessary. I keep running into your son in dreams, she says, standing now. I need relief. These cinnamon rolls. Grace and Gabe are not home. I'm on my own with the whole ushering her out of here business. As a child, I was run down on the beach by a golden retriever off its leash, and I'll never forget the way my father threatened the owner. No doubt the dog was playing, but that breed bites more people than pit bulls. It's an actual fact. Things are getting muddled here, but what I mean to say is that our dogs are just waiting behind the bedroom door to get rowdy. Please don't mistake my kindness for enthusiasm. Part 3, Expectorant. Some biography, I'm recalling the flowers of my youth, the perennial blooming of bronchitis in my sunken young chest, freezing cold and embarrassed by the x-ray machine, the young nurse, you poor thing, filled with yellow, shadowy, and grossly. But this is about getting Meredith out of the house. I let her in and don't know what to do with her. As Grace would say, well, this is a metaphor, isn't it? Robitussin with codeine was too much for me and made me so nauseous I had to lay down in the back seat. Erythromycin gave me allergies. I had to go to second-tier treatment. I missed a whole basketball season, but got a trophy. Some people think it's gestures like that that are ruining this country. Meredith is still talking. You know, you're the ghost that's haunting this house. I forgive you for hitting my son with your car, but not for bullshit. No nothing statements. She begs to see the dogs, and when I let them out, they all sit down in her presence. They were meant to expedite her exit, and this is unprecedented. The pups, she said, which is wrong, 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 since all but one were full grown. I picked up my keys. I have errands, and I'm blocking the driveway, she said. I get it. I know your type. You leave blank answers on a multiple choice test. She drives off, and I drive off to complete the lie. I have no such errands. How dare she come into my house with her NA spiritualism? I know she's an addict because I'm an addict. It's not like I still have that trophy from the basketball season I missed with bronchitis, but what she said is not nearly superficial enough to be true. That's it. Thanks.
That was wonderful, Sean. You know, I obviously I really love your writing because we published some of it, but I really love the way that these pieces marry these really surreal magical moments with the mundane bullshit of everyday life. It's like that perfect balance where if you tip too far one way or the other, you'd end up with something very normal, but the way you manage that very precise balance really helps these works transcend. I also had no idea that the piece we published was the center of a trilogy of pieces, and that's really cool.
Thanks, William. Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks again for taking the piece.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for submitting it, and thank you for coming tonight and reading. It was awesome.
I want to say the first piece that you read, the ending is so memorable. That's going to stay with me. That, yeah. I know what stuff is going to stick in my head.
Thanks,
for a while.
Thank you. I worked hard on it. Thanks.
Yeah, it was. Oh, was that the bit about all the insects in the afterlife? Yeah, that was wonderful. That hit me hard.
Yes, I know.
Thank you so much, Sean.
Thanks, William.
Yeah. Derek, you're up next.
Awesome. Can you hear me all right?
Pretty clearly, yeah.
All right. So thank you guys. Thanks for letting me read. I'm going to read an excerpt of the thing I'm working on right now. It's called The Horrors of Puerto Plata. It's kind of hard to excerpt out. Obviously, I'm hoping it's not like too reliant on other stuff. But then the only other thing to say is that it's a piece nested within it. So this is written by, I don't know. So it's like, whatever. This is called My Career, and it's by Blake Lee. Asking to be read is a provocation. Watching you read what I've written is voyeuristic. It is not so interesting anymore what the writer has written. The particulars and peculiarities of any one story are as incidental and instructive as the weather. It is this way or it is that way. Fine. So it is then. The discerning mind will ask instead where the weather comes from, what conditions were present or necessary to create a certain storm. Who is the writer, and why did the writer choose to write this or that when they could have written something else or even nothing at all? This question represents the chief and last remaining interest of the modern reader. Where does the writer live? What does the writer look like? Where does the writer write? What beverage does the writer prefer? And so on. He lives in North Carolina. He has red hair. He writes in a nook in the room above the garage overlooking the front yard where his children are playing and arguing. He drinks iced coffee from the time he wakes up, 7:30 a.m. until noon, when he switches to Diet Coke through the afternoon. And then at dusk, it is sparkling water until sleep comes, around 1 a.m., etc. I sit uneasily at the precipice of some certain literary notoriety as I wait for my debut novel to land in readers' hands and stir the husked remains of an erudite culture ever shrinking into the sated abyss of digital placations. I take this time as my last opportunity to exert a modicum of control over a piggish audience's image of the writer. Within just a few short years, or months even, if I sit silent, the dead air will be filled with the impressions of former lovers, rejected friends, cowardly enemies, envious contemporaries, illiterate onlookers, and out-of-context court records. While I may include a quote, or several, from these jilted members of people and documents to sheen the coding with the appearance of impartiality, I will not be enumerating my faults, real or imagined, known or unknown to me, much to the chagrin, I'm sure, of my haters. I was born in a place during a time. I am in the corner of the three-season room where the desserts were kept on the table during Sunday supper at Nanny and Papaw's house reading a book. I'm hiding in plain sight. Literature, an absolute carnal thing, soothing consciousness companion, sexual, naughty, constant. I read, which impressed the adults and frightened my peers. They had no idea the smut I was soaking in. I would fall in love and immediately have to write just like them, to pursue a conversation across eternity. There were so many. Ginsberg, Bolaño, DFW. I'm sorry. What did you expect? Aria, Drindic later, and I'd like to note before it was fashionable. Via Matas, most of all, I'm afraid. Adler, who went wherever she pleased. And Dara. Cormac, what little I understand of what I do gather, not Gaddis, might come as a surprise. Nor Henry Miller, who I'd find so full of bitterness and dark heart, I trembled after an evening in his company. I want to at least surprise you with a language choice. It's the least I can do. I almost feel like apologizing how ugly this whole thing is. I lived in squalor and filth in my late teenage years and up until I was 21, in fact. My mom used to catch me swift on the hindquarter with the back of a hairbrush, fussing about, boy, you love to tell stories. And I wink like a kitty cat because I sure do. I sure do. The things Grace Hemlock says about me are a goddamn lie. I wasn't even that drunk. Some things will rise up and follow you around for 100 years. The devil portends. The music of the era is the only thing I'll recall, God bless. We never used to take photographs back then. The rest of it washes ashore. Retrospective, introspective, navel-gazing, diaristic, impressionistic, chauvinistic, gives you dick pic. I stay riding with a thick bitch. Cannot think of a reader. If I think of a reader, I'm fucking done. I was not walking around with a tape recorder tied to my neck. I didn't take notes. The only rule I ever made myself, if you type for 5 straight minutes without deleting a line, it's time to pack it up for the day. You've fallen in love with your bullshit. You and your bullshit should go get married. I drank well until it was time to stop. I stay medicated. It took a plague for me to stand it long enough to say it. I renounce all my former work. I in particular renounce this work. And to be certain, I renounce all that shall come to pass until my passing. I only control one side of the conversation, and that has never been lost on me. I wish you weren't still here. What brings you here? What have you heard? What have they told you? Did you think I wouldn't notice? Did you think you could waltz in unarmed, unharmed, or unseen? I thought it might be nice to spend an evening together. I thought you might take off that sweater. We got the fire lit, baby, and it's roaring. You don't got no need for all that wool. And listen to me sing a song into the void. I made a whole room for you. If you didn't come, these juicy oranges would go to waste that I've set out, that I've set up. That goes here, and this goes there. I wrote it this way on purpose, I promise. There's levels to this shit. Everyone is always saying about boxing. In middle age, as I've taken up the practice of recording, I've also come to watch boxing late at night. I like to watch 2 men fight. I have to hide this from the people who love me. I will never believe you love me. It is not me. This is not that. I refuse to confess. I reject your request. If you too are in the 3-season room overlooking the gravel, basketball hoop, carport 1990 or 3, they still sell this shit to some of you these days. My God, I'm sorry for you. I must say hello. No one sees you there, and no one sees me here. We can be alone together finally. There. There's no one else. No one came through. The path back behind the shed where they kept the guns, at least the ones I knew about, I'll die unpublished before you'd meet Rick. You constantly test my metal is cleared for 2. Reading as a violation. Reading as a vocation. At no point at any time did I claim to be good at this. When he found me, my benefactor, I rejected him at first. This is how it's done, I said. Or this is not how it's done, I said. I can't recall. Either way, I made clear my interest was puckish at best. He asked me what puckish meant. I didn't even casually reply. But he did not topple whole industries and extract billions of dollars from the workers to let a small slight go or a wanted thing undone. I became his prey. He wrote me public letters. I made him beg. We met and we set the parameters of the exchange. I would receive riches, total privacy. A single reader during my lifetime, it's true, but a dedicated reader, desperately in love with my work, constantly pointing out little tricks I might pull, and what happens after my death is the universe's business besides. He would receive all of it, every utterance, even and especially the deletions. If it passed through for any number of milliseconds, it's mine. It's mine, goddammit, to edit, re-erase, manipulate, and demonstrate any way I please. You who are holding a hostage letter. You who sees me screaming air, no sound at all. The rest belongs to him. Let the record show I was both men appearing in every scene. Imagine a reader. My God, can you imagine? His name called and offered me the deal. My writing would immediately never appear again. His name gave me 2 days to reply. If ever or when this ever gets read by someone other than his name, I have less than 12 hours left to tender my literary resignation in exchange for every conceivable earthly delight. But I said no, thinking only of you. You're welcome. The time was, or the time used to be, when I would sway too far back and forth, lose the swing of the thing. His name was a worthy benefactor, adept in matters of praise, humble yet discreet in his critique, fully aware that the author was a man, and attuned to what all that might mean for someone who hangs any part of their identity, and Lord knows I do some, on whatever the Sam Hill it means to be a man. All of this is basic philosophy, and you could look any bit of it up for yourself, no problem, but I rejected him all the same. There would be no risk in it. It wouldn't feel like flying. I'd sooner shut the thing down than have to do it for my supper. I'd do it for love. This cannot be work. Readers do the work. Readers complete the sentence. Readers with voices in their heads to give voice to my patter with their own rhythms, experiences, backgrounds, reference points, entire lives lived, sometimes more than your own at the point of contact, and yet it does not exist without you. I won't always be able to call you and explain my career.
That was amazing as usual, Derek. But you need to tell me more about this larger work. I think you said it was a novella, right? How much can you share?
It's a novella about two men, who are going down to Puerto Plata at the Dominican Republic. And they're just going on, and they're obviously you can tell from that one because that's one of the men that they're both writers. So obviously I only write about writers and shit like that. So that dude, Blake Lee, is one of the men with the two guys going down to Puerto Plata.
So what you're telling me is this is a road trip novel with one or two unreliable narrators, and it's metafiction. You sold me. That's right down my fucking alley.
When can we pre-order this?
Whenever I can finish it, man.
So
that's
meta.
Oh, sorry.
So meta. Derek, we love you.
No, this literally sounds like it's designed to cater to like my personal taste. So I'm 100% on board with this shit.
Derek, you're better than cocaine.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Derek. Kara Parcel, did I say that right? Kara Parcel is up next.
Yeah, he's gonna be here soon, but if you can bump him back, he's just having dinner right now.
Oh yeah, he sent me a message about that. I wasn't sure if he had made it in yet. Okay, I can bump him next. So Michael's up next.
Let me just share this document here.
Sure. And this is more from the work in progress novel, right?
Yeah, this is another chapter from the manuscript.
Sweet.
Cool. So I know some people have been around for other chapters I've read, but for those who haven't, the basic premise is that these two friends are making a documentary about this homeless man they meet, and this man believes he is a superhero. And just prior to this, there's been sort of like a big confrontation event while they were filming. And, one of the characters has sort of stomped off, and they sort of kind of left the hero man character behind. And so this is a chapter that kind of comes after that. Cool. So this is Hero Man chapter 13. Lena tosses her phone on the bed. Fuck, she says. She tried to call John, but gave up after 3 attempts. Lena sits down and stares at the camcorder on the desk. Miraculously, it was dry when she removed the plastic wrap. The droning of the big central air conditioning unit in the next room and the drip, drip, drip of water from her soaked-through clothing punctuates the dry quietude. Lena shivers. She strips down to her underwear and pulls on the bathrobe thrown over the back of her desk chair. She takes a cigarette from a pack on the desk and walks over to the storm door that leads down into her basement bedroom, pushes it open. Rain quickly wets the steps. She lights the cigarette with a Zippo, then blows twisting plumes up to the pitch-black sky. She feels miserable and thinks about John walking through the storm, maybe lost, maybe dead. When Lena finishes the cigarette, she goes back to the desk and lights another one. She thinks about Gray and decides she should go find him to make sense of what happened. Lena flicks the last of the cigarette out of the storm door and changes into a fresh pair of jeans and a dark sweatshirt. She stuffs her phone and the pack of cigarettes into her back pockets, then slides the camera into her rain jacket. She ascends the stairs and slams the door shut behind her. Fog has enveloped everything. Past the side of the house, the cloudy murk shrouds the streetlights in orange haze. The rain swirls around her in the gusting wind. Lena puts her hands in her jacket pocket, trying to protect the camera, and walks toward the road. The road slopes down, around a turn, past houses dreamlike, ephemeral in the fog. Another mile and she's on a sidewalk alongside a cemetery of small hillocks dotted by tombstones and memorials. She runs her fingers along the black metal poles of the cemetery fence as she walks. A police cruiser with its lights off whips by, briefly flicking on its high beam lights. Lena shields her eyes. The police cruiser disappears around the next turn, and at the last moments its blue lights flare up, its engine snarling as the cruiser gains speed. The tall spire of St. Martin's Church lurks in the gloom. Ascending the front steps of the church, Lena stands beneath the entrance archway as the storm gains strength with each passing second. Hammering rainfall. She relights a cigarette and leans against the door, wondering if she's even going the right way or when the rain will cease. After several minutes, Lena descends the wide stone stairs, nearly slipping, and rushes across the grass and back to the sidewalk. The storm devours her, grasping at her clothes, as if seeking a way inward at every possible point. The tall pylons of the power lines loom around her like unlit watchtowers. Lena turns on her phone and tries to position at the top of her pocket in a way that casts a small beam of light on the trail. Her feet carry her down the dirt path, around the familiar rotations, until at last she arrives at Gray's house. Rain pounds against what's left of the roof and the sides of the house. Rot and mildew permeate. Floorboards murmur for help. In every room, water gathers in rippling puddles. The stairs whimper beneath Lena as she descends to the basement, her hand gripping the metal handrail while the other holds her phone's light in front of her. Gray sits on the couch. The camping lantern on the upside-down plastic crate creates a dim aurora around him. Beside the lamp sits a small pile of brown powder on a plate. A piece of tin foil creased into a V shape in a plastic lighter. Small plastic baggies with their ends ripped off, open lie discarded on the cushion next to Gray. Slumped back into the couch, Gray's face is mute, without expression. Lena isn't sure that he's aware of her yet. "Hey, how are you doing?" Lena asks as she takes a few cautious steps off the staircase. Gray lifts his head and stares at Lena. His face is dirty and his eyes are watery and red and pupil-full. Whether his face is soaked from the rain or sweat is unclear. "Can I sit down?" Lena asks. "Sure," says Gray. Lena approaches the couch, brushes aside the empty baggies onto the floor and sits. As she sinks into the cushion, her legs feel damp. Lena takes the camera out of the bag, removes it from its plastic wrappings, and sets it on the plastic crate with the lens facing the wall. She presses the record button. "Can we talk about what happened earlier?" Lena asks. "No," says Gray. "Okay." There's a quiet finality to the moment, punctuated by the never-ending drip of water through the floorboards above them. Lena decides to press the point. "Why did you go looking for that baby?" she asks. "To help a friend," says Gray. "To help friends." "What friends?" Lena asks. "You don't know them." "Tell me." Gray looks at Lena. "I've never been this close to you," she thinks. Even in the dim light, she can see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. A twist of water falls from his forehead, past his eyes to his chin. The lamplight casts a shadow on the far half of Gray's face. "Did you grow up here?" Gray asks. "Yes," says Lena, after a few moments. "My friends have families here too." "Had." Gray pauses. "One of them did. Good friends of mine." "What were their names?" asks Lena. "They didn't live far from here," says Gray. "Past the woods in the neighborhood by the elementary school." "No, the secondary school." "Murdoch Street." "No, Murphy Street." "Murphy. Murdoch." They had one of those tiny houses. Single floor with a 2-car garage. He was a firefighter. She was a nurse. She was beautiful. She grew up here and he lived in Carlisle, but he went to school in Montford. They met their freshman year in high school. Everyone loved them. When they graduated, she went to school in Lowell for nursing. He worked for Montford's fire department. Everyone loved them. Gray leans forward. He scoops some of the brown powder onto the V-shaped piece of tinfoil, then reaches into his pocket and takes out a pen tube. Gray places the end of the tube in his mouth and holds the tinfoil with his fingertips, flicks the lighter to life and holds the flame beneath the foil, slowly moves it to his lips. The brown powder crackles and smoke flows up the tube and into his mouth. He sets everything down onto the plate, leans back and releases a thin line of smoke. For several minutes, he doesn't speak or even appear to breathe. Gray stares forward as if something stares back. Lena reaches over to touch him. Gray flashes his eyes toward her and she yanks her hand away. He begins to speak again, slowly, like his voice is weighted down by stone. After a few years, she graduated from nursing school and started working at the hospital in Lowell. He was still in Montford, working fires, saving lives, being a hero. Everyone loved him, and he loved to drink and party. He had so many friends that he would spend his nights with. For a while, they would go to parties together, and he would drink, and she would drink, and they'd stay up late and make love until the morning. But then she got pregnant and stopped going to the parties. He kept going. Her father would take him aside and tell him that he was a good man and that he had a bright future, that he could do anything he wanted, but that he had a family coming and he would need to take care of them. So for a while, he was good. He would come home after work and spend time with her and cook for her, and her belly grew, and that night he would place his hand on her belly and feel the baby kick. Gray's eyes filled with tears. And he was good, and she loved him. And when the baby was born, she was beautiful. So beautiful, like a ball of light. So light, he held her for hours in the hospital and for hours at home, and he loved his wife and he loved his daughter. It was good. It was good. Gray leans forward and takes another hit. He exhales and the smoke tendrils drift over the camping light. He turns and offers the tin foil and the lighter and the plastic tube to Lena. Want some? Gray asks, his voice meek, almost pleading. Lena stares at what she's offered for a few seconds and then takes it, holding it all clumsily in her hands. She places the tube in her mouth, and Gray sprinkles some of the brown powder on the tinfoil. He takes the lighter from Lena, sparks it, and holds the flame beneath the tinfoil. Breathe, Gray says. Lena inhales. The brown powder crackles and the smoke rushes through her lips, past her throat, down deep inside her. A burning sensation floods through her. She coughs and nearly drops the tin foil and pushes it back toward Gray, who takes the foil and sets it on the plate. Lena keeps coughing and looks at Gray, who stares back unblinkingly like he is waiting for something to happen. Lena begins to feel warmth radiate in her chest, as if her heart is pumping some strange viscid fluid through her veins. An ecstatic smile stretches across her face, and she sinks deeper into the couch. The warmth grows like she's wrapped in the reach of some distant happiness. She feels every beat of her heart as it quickens and pulses through her, faster and faster. But she is completely incapable of panic. It's as if this was meant to happen or was always meant to happen, and she's being borne away on some infinitely soft raft on an unseen river. Lena feels the sweat on her face, but it's almost like it's not her sweat or her face, but someone else's, and still her smile grows. The warmth suffocates, her breath a crawl, in, out, in, out. Somewhere through the warm mist, like the call of a distant ship, Gray speaks. He grew restless, not angry, but restless. She didn't understand. So many late nights, so many nights of the baby crying and not sleeping and waking him and suffering in the morning. He started slipping out at night and seeing his friends and drinking and smoking and partying and driving late at night, long drives up into New Hampshire and down to New York. He started going to work late and missing shifts. For a while, they let him get away with it because he was so loved in town and everyone knew him, and he was a good man, but they grew tired of it. And she grew tired of it. Then he was fired and he had nothing but the baby and wife at home and his friends in the late nights. So he went harder and drank more and smoked more and he started doing other things, and he lost his grip on the world, and he would chase the other things to make him feel good, and it made him feel so good. Lena's body throbs, a blood music for everything inside her, bones and veins, heart and lungs. She's sinking toward the center of the earth. Gray's voice sounds like it's coming from across the room or up the stairs or out in the woods. Right beside her, deep inside her, everywhere and nowhere. A raindrop plunks against her face from the floorboards, and the water slips down into her eyes, but she can't lift a hand to wipe it away. The idea of this inability strikes her as funny. Giggles dribble out through her heavy lips. Gray still speaks, his voice cracked and shuddering, like a boat splitting in two. It made him feel good, but he was slow and his energy was slipping. He ran low on money, so he borrowed money. He borrowed the things that made him feel good. He wandered town doing small jobs, junk work, but even that wasn't enough. So he went to her family and they gave him money and he would waste it. Other days he would just stay at home with his daughter, and his wife would work long hours at the hospital. And when she was home, she would sleep, and there was a great distance between them. And it went on and on like this for so long. and some days they wouldn't even speak. Gray's voice fades and he grips the sides of his head. Tight squeeze, vein bulges like overrun rivers. Lena wants to reach for him, to touch him, but the heaviness and warmth and the gravity are too much, far too much. Then he speaks. One day he was at home with the baby and the wife was at the hospital. It was a hot day, the hottest of that summer, and he wanted to drink. He wanted to drink, but there was no drink in the house. So he took the baby from the crib and he went out to his truck and drove across town because the liquor store nearby wouldn't serve him. But there was one in Lowell that did, so he went there and he bought a bunch of beer and some whiskey and drove home. He went inside and sat on the couch and drank. He drank all the beer and he drank all the whiskey, and when he ran out, he shot up all the stuff he had left. His phone rang and he saw that it was his wife, but he didn't answer, just sat there in the living room with the TV on. He fell asleep. When he woke up, he heard screaming and crying, and he got to his feet and looked out the window, and his wife was on the ground next to his truck, and the baby was in her arms, and she kept screaming and crying. So he went to the front door and went outside, and when she saw him, she kept screaming, and when he got closer, he saw his daughter's pale face and lifeless eyes staring up at the sky, and he was filled with a cold feeling. He stepped back and his wife looked up at him like he was a ghost, and she got to her feet and she was yelling at him, but he couldn't hear what she was saying, and the whole world started to spin. He fell to the ground and he got to his feet, and then he fell again and she kept screaming. Gray pushes himself off the couch and Lena watches him, unsure if what's happening is real. Maybe she never left home. The warmth she felt at first has faded, but the world's pull against her body still feels askew. All Lena wants to do is sleep. Gray takes a few steps forward and looks around on the floor like he's searching for something. He bends, picks up a small canteen, and lifts it to his lips. After Gray's long swig, he spits water on the floor. He returns to the couch and falls onto the cushion, and Lena hears something wooden snap beneath them. A sad smile stretches across Gray's face. My friend couldn't stay. He had to get out of there. So he ran away with the clothes on his back, and he disappeared, and I never saw him again. What happened to the wife? Lena asks. She lost her baby, Gray says. He pinches some more of the brown powder and spreads it on the tinfoil. She lost her baby, he says again. Lena is seated on the front porch of her mother's house, working to breathe, like she's buried beneath a mound of sand. The rain has stopped. She knows she should go around the side of the house and let herself into the basement, crawl into bed, and sleep for a lifetime. But the morning sun feels good on her face. It feels right, like it was supposed to be this way, like she's meant to be in this place now, in this moment. Important to her, to the movie, to everything. Everything feels like especially this sensation. And in her deepest self, she only wants to feel this, just like this, every day onward. She grips the camera against her stomach. The battery is dead. A lawnmower drones a few houses away. Lena tries to stand, but her legs feel like they're liquid, so she keeps sitting there, eyes tracing the imperfections in the road. Then the front door behind her opens. Voices call her name, but Lena can't tell what they're saying. And that's it.
That was fucking beautiful. It's so like you have a real knack for the way you write prose. It's so like, I don't know, that piece especially so bittersweet. You know, you capture like it's dealing with like an immense tragedy and the aftermath of an immense tragedy and the things people do to cope and deal. But it's so the way you deliver it and the way it's presented, it just seems so beautiful, and that really captures like that, like, I don't know, uniquely like bittersweet feeling that comes with mourning and with trying to escape from loss. You know, no, it's just a beautiful piece. Is what I'm saying.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Where is this novel coming out?
TBD. I've been submitting it around, and so hopefully someday soon.
If you want to like serialize it, we're running a serial fiction journal. Just letting you know.
I'll keep that in mind. I think, do we follow each other on Twitter?
On Data Express. Speaking of.
if you want to maybe put your Twitter handles in the chat, and then you can.
Yeah, I'll definitely follow up with you on that. Thank you. Cool. Thanks for
Yeah.
letting me read.
Yeah, thank you so much for reading. I heard someone say something. I don't know if Rudy was going to comment. I thought I heard Rudy's
Yes.
voice.
I was just gonna say I love the use of monologue there. The way it's, I know this is like a kind of real life superhero story, but that is so great that just goes along with it so well. Like the use of like those long rambling, like monologues that then get brought back down to earth with the stuff that happens afterwards. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. Kara Parcel is, I think I saw him come in. So,
Yo, what's up?
hey, how's it going?
Hey, not too bad. Sorry, I got held up by eating and housework, which meant that I had to miss both half of the previous story. Which, by the way, actually to corroborate on Rudy's point, actually, like there was a great amount of presence to it, and the kind of the image of the monologue didn't hit me until a bit later. So yeah, no, that's great work out there. Again, if you're interested in serializing, we out here on Data Express, yeah. Yeah, no, how's everybody?
Yeah, no, it's no big deal. Things come up, but yeah, definitely. The floor is yours now, and I just put the link in the chat, so it's all yours.
Oh, great. All right, cool. Appreciate it, man. All right. Yeah, no, it's been a while since I've been to misery tourism, but I thought I've been in hiding. Might as well make some kind of a reappearance, I suppose. So this is from a work called Psychogramma. It's kind of like a Serial Experiments Lane-like, except for there's way more guns in it, because I think there's only like one or two that show up in the show. So if that's your thing, then Psychogramma might be for you. Basically, the premise is kind of like it's pretty much a world where the real world and the wired are essentially two planes you can phase through by means of electric signals. So this is just one of the stories that comes about from it. I can't talk apparently, but let's hope I can read. So, all right, here we go. Reflections waver beside me from the ceramic tiles rendering this hallway. Grids of jeweled terminals perspire droplets of endless corridors on the once smooth concrete wall, pockmarked in craters and scratches. Now the rock it once was, radiating from the light fixtures like the blasted surface of the moon. Reaching the reception slot, a guard in Class A2 body armor, clasped on a wrinkled dress shirt, raises his hand away from his surveillance monitor, its light slipping from his face as if a change in the time of day, into his sallow expression to regard me from behind the narrow glass between us. His gaze slides over my card, the wrinkles on his face strain at the photo, perhaps trying to match the details of the silhouette to my profile.
Did we lose you? Shoot, I think he crashed. I don't even see him in the, damn. Well, let's give him a second. What an exit.
Or was that right? Is it?
Can hear you now.
Isn't sick? All right. Sorry about that, but hey, I guess it's kind of fitting because it's phasing between the real world and the wired. All right, let's get going. His uncertainty hardly adhered to the flat expression on his security pass before throwing the card back to me through the outlet under the glass, almost to ensure an efficient operation of his duties before returning to the faint cheer from esports battle royale, with soldiers jumping in simulated hillsides. His face glows from the monitor, erasing its skeletal juts that hollowed his cheeks. Fluorescent lighting palpitates down the hall from each fixture as darkness laces the milky pools of light. I draw the G3KA4 carbine rifle from the harness carrier, concealed by the Foxhound jacket's adaptive geometry. The polygonal fabric now settles into a calm sea, unfolding the oared stock to cushion the rifle into my shoulder. Aiming down the receiver, beamed toward the ringed front sight as I grasped the bladed handguard, clamped under the barrel. Moving forward, every step's contact might meld the rendered halls beside me. My presence occupies a fraction of the thousands of renditions of this corridor granted out of the fluorescent lights, the particles thrumming within the fixtures. Off the reflection from one of the tiles, men in suits wait by the elevator. Their hands twitch near their coat lapels, afraid of milky shapes rippling on the walls, the moon almost full. There have been rumors that a non-existent 888th floor appears at 1221 from the 887 level mega complex. Many users on the wire to BBS attributed the rumor to mere ghost stories found among videos of people writhing in demonic possession, or assumed there was a banal explanation, a clerical error, or someone imagined a ghoul while going into shock from stubbing their toe. If that were the case, the carbine rifle and supplies made me overdressed and overarmed for the occasion, but then so were the guys by the elevator. Underneath the long coat's adaptive polygons that retain a plausible figure conceal a satchel containing cameras, bugs, fingerprint powder, extending crowbar, food capsules, and water, enough to last a couple days to avoid physical dehydration. The coat itself strapped in 20-round magazines for the G3K, KA4, and 9mm magazines for the VP70 stored in its stock attached to a thigh holster. All these objects here as if I'd been wishing for a cataclysm until only I and my target surfaced onto a desolate plain that once veined these reflections of the corridor, rendering all connections into dust, settling onto remains of the earth slitting the sky. Middle elevators arrive. The suited men form a perimeter around the entrance where I glimpse a suitcase carrier backing into the unit as his guards start to file in. I keep back so that they would not catch my errant reflection until I hear the sliding doors close. At the interface panel, orbit numbers light up one by one to the unit's destination, an ellipsis of transit. Silent inhabitants moving to their residential units in the complex. Withdrawing the rifle behind the jacket, the magnet harness catches it while I opt the BP-70 pistol spring out of its stock holster into my hand, wrapping around the polymer grip, licking to support the slide, canted towards the oblong muzzle. A solid yet thin trigger lies behind. Another elevator arrives and I enter, BP-70 behind my back, while I sidle past an exiting older lady who flashes a glare. I press for floor 886, looking at my watch to predict their time of arrival. It was only 12:10, and no one had specified when this room would appear in seconds. The elevator unit surges up with the pneumatic shaft once I select the 886th floor, to make sure I do not arrive at the same time as my targets in a comical coincidence where we would stop in a moment of disbelief or scrambling. Mirrored walls echoed my reflection, images repeated across each pane folded into this box unit, all connected by each impulse in a schematic of the self. Even as the elevator stops for other residents, their images bounced across each of the walls, becoming near kaleidoscopic as small twitches, shuffles, or absent gazes fragment in my gaze. As these disembodied creatures monitor my moves or even act at any provocation. Despite the efficient suction pneumatic shaft, the unit itself retained its cubic structure instead of a cylindrical one used in newer buildings. Some say that the use of 21st century structures and motifs here are like why computers first came in a modular gray to nullify some sense of frightening technological advancement, vaporizing pastoral fields and family-owned oligarchies. Floor 86, as requested, opens to a frame of concrete wall and tile staring back at me before I hit the close elevator button to go up to 887. Watch already at 12:20. The unit climbs a single floor until the lights cut. All the reflections extinguish in black as I back into one of the walls. Maybe the entire unit would stop and plunge down all 800 floors, a final roller coaster throw before a climatic crumple into annihilation, more total than a gunshot wound. Drawing a flashlight from my pocket where the BP-70 reveals a white circle that blots out my reflection, while barely lighting the corners of the unit suspended from midair, from my steps echoing through the floor, moaning down the shaft. I look for an emergency door above, but the unit drops, jolting into place, and I was to step into some new chaotic world imagined as long ago as Y2K or some such dream of technological failure. 12:21, and nothing happened. Worried that this whole thing might be unfounded despite the breakdown from the elevator unit, already a good sign. I take the extendable crowbar from my bag and drive it in between the doors to force them open, unveiling another floor like the ones before it, but this one utterly silent, untouched by the warbles of appliances behind the door, which were untouched of decorations. My watch did not move, yet an instance where a glob of paint texture tears off the walls to reveal a wireframe model of the corridor before returning to its intended surface, retaining its preternatural glow, its tiles barren of reflection. Moving my fingers, the air responds with a faint electricity, a frequency of static that could call virtual objects to palm. Seemingly, I entered the world, the wired, of a virtual space from this elevator. A frequency looms with milky figures whose tendrils approximate into limbs sculpted out of fluorescent signals. They pass through me as if bodies of mist, and I stay to the side, leaning on the wall, pressing onto my flesh. A point of contact. Through these bodies, someone else leans on the opposing wall, a young girl in a school uniform whose eyes I can't make out, obscured by her slightly dyed brown hair falling to one side, unaffected by the static. She moved her head very slightly, perhaps discerning something out of the white waves that might meet her in this corridor. There isn't enough static for my voice to transmit, so I try, walking along the wall to face her. But by the time the figures melt, there was only concrete wall, and as I turn my head, the corridor empties, with the static calming into a low electric drone, characteristic of the wired. The bright figures return to the canisters above me, emitting their meager light.
God,
Throat
those
strike.
descriptions are fucking gorgeous. I love the way this is written. It really captures that like lost sensation of playing a video game when you're like 13 and there's all this like wonder and so much of what like you're looking at some polygonal, like at least for me, like this was like the N64 era, so you're looking at like 8 polygons but you're imagining this vivid universe and you really nail that feeling, you know. And I don't know, it's just gorgeously written. Thank you.
Hey, thanks a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
holy, now you mentioned the N64, I haven't seen an N64 in so long, so I appreciate the nostalgia for it, man.
Yeah,
But-
those were the days.
Yeah, actually, the thing that came to me while writing this actually, the game that more came to my mind when writing this was like Metal Gear Solid 2 and I believe Killer 7, because I was playing those around the time that I was writing and trying to figure out specific ways to describe stuff, just because it's really, because I'm trying to nail a specific kind of aesthetic, you know, writer things, right?
Yeah. No, I haven't played Killer 7. I really want to, but I definitely got the like Suda 51 vibes from this, if that makes sense. You know, that kind of like that very specific kind of engagement, like that very specific kind of self-aware engagement with technology and with games. So yeah, no, I dug this. I dug the shit out of this. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Hey, thank you for letting me read it, man.
Yeah, definitely. Gianluca is up next. I never know if I'm saying your name right, by the way, man. Or Angus. You still with us? I see you in the participants list. If he stepped away, we can skip him and come back to him. Yeah, why don't we do that? Then Alexandrine is up next. Put that one in the chat.
Oh, shit. Hey, y'all.
Hey. So,
Great.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, you're going to be reading from a novel, right?
Yeah, so this is not the same project I read from last week. This is like the one that's done. This was my master's thesis that I'm trying to flog to various outlets. So this is like a completed thing that has been the bane of my existence. So I'm feeling bitter tonight, so I thought I would read it.
Bitterness always like leads to the best readings and the best art, I think. So it's all yours.
All right. My father Tunde is the only Nigerian, the only black man who belongs to this country club, which is why he insists on transacting his official or near official business here. He must show that he is exceptional. I have not been allowed here for 5 years. I am here now because I need his money. He chose this venue to intimidate me, remind me what I lost since I turned 18 and became the one thing he wasn't prepared to deal with, an American. I'll be very honest with you, he says. He's picking apart his Asian grilled chicken salad. The food here is the greatest hits of the standard Indiana menu and is revolting. Burgers, salmon, obviously frozen, and Cajun pasta Alfredo. Grilled chicken or shrimp, also frozen for an additional $3. It all tastes like blood to me. I'm sucking back what's in my nose, desperate not to leak from the shitty Coke I did last night. My phone rings silently in my jeans. I do not need to look to know who was calling. They've been calling me for weeks, making demands, as people often do when you owe them money. He joined this place shortly after he moved to Abboton, desperate for validation. Like every successful black man, he knows that financial prosperity can buy solace from racism if only you can buy your way into the right spaces. Combine the accoutrement of white nobility with the funk of blackness. I'll be very honest with you, Victor, my father continues. I'm not going to leave you out in the cold. This would not be right. I made you a promise when you were a baby and I was holding you in my arms to take care of you, but I am not comfortable with your behavior and things will have to change. He shovels up some confettied lettuce. I will, as always, open my wallet for education, for career, for whatnot, but I'm not happy about it. He will now enumerate my flaws. Some legitimate, others juvenile indiscretions committed before I had received my driver's license. He took a half day at work, something he can do as a senior program director at Parker Pilgrim Pharmaceuticals, an essential redundancy within their organization, the only company keeping the city going in the aftermath of a mass exodus of Fortune 500 firms. What was once an up-and-coming Midwestern hub has degraded into a rusted-out husk of depravity and horror as people with time and without jobs find new and interesting ways to ruin their lives. Your mother has turned you against me, we know this. There have been mistakes on my part, I don't blame you entirely. That being said, you haven't respected me and you have been disruptive. I worked very hard to support you and your mother and am not appreciated. You said I didn't deserve your respect despite all I've done. I mused endlessly. I unstick my mouth. I was 14. He looks up at me, mottled cheeks, black eyes over severe, elongated glasses. Excuse me? When I said you didn't deserve my respect. I fight the amphetamine grind. How many tablets did I take again? Was it enough to get me through this or just enough to take the edge off? Or was it enough to fuck me up like I really wanted? I was 14. It doesn't matter. No other son would say that to his father. None of these fathers have to deal with this from their sons. He holds up his stop hand. I would appreciate if you didn't argue with me. I have suffered a great deal at the hands of you and your mother. Yes, suffered. Look around you. I have overcome so much and would have gotten so much further if this ass hadn't been black. And you say I don't deserve your respect. Through the windows, you can see the golf course somehow both burning and rotting in the late May weather. The lazy, overpaid staff, made up mostly of the children and grandchildren of the membership, moves between greens, completing tasks at their leisure as the land in their charge falls apart like everything else here. Fat white men in white golf carts cruise the hills like maggots. A banner reads Men's Mid-Amateur Championship this weekend, sponsored by Parker Pilgrim. Near us is Theodore Teddy Greinsberg III, absolute hellion, whose daddy still brings him around at least once a week for tennis and bean soup. Teddy just got back from a grip upstate on drug, vandalism, and/or burglary charges related to robbing his own grandmother for cash and OxyContin. One time I let him make out with me, an ill-advised and disgusting bit of mutual experimentation that made me feel weird, even though enough that I never returned his calls. Teddy waves at us and we wave back. Faggot, my father says under his breath. My friend Lex texts me to remind me to pick him up for the death metal show tonight. I'm sorry, Dad, honestly. I've had my own struggles. I mean, I'm still in Adewale, still black. No, you are not. You cannot imagine what I have been through coming to this country with no one, no mother, no father to support me, earning my degree, working to create this comfortable life that you waste and take for granted. What you have gone through is nothing. I have made sure of that your entire life. I raised you to be a decent young man, not a drunk or a faggot or whatever. And you have resisted this. You have been terrible to me. Some would say abusive. Yes, abusive, don't try to argue, but I have forgiven you for my own health. To take this from me, that is his great cruelty, to damn me to whiteness due to my mulatto nature, as if the world doesn't see me for what I am, as though I haven't been called a nigger more times than I can count, as if I do not deserve to be held in the same space as him, as if any black American isn't mixed with something. He does this because my skin is pale brown and I shave my head for the sake of ambiguity, because I dress like a hardcore punk kid and listen to headbanging music. I'm trying to do better. Whatever, what do you need? Security deposit, any broker's fees in the moving van. I'll drive it there myself and leave the car. The subway can take care of me in New York. All the places I'm looking at are close to the university anyway. Also a per diem until I can find a job. My father loves any corporate or Latin phrase. Fine, send me the documents. And when is it scheduled, your magnificent departure? First week of August? I am infuriated and relieved. You're still working? It's not going well. He lifts his eyebrows like a real father. Somebody, we aren't sure whom, took from the register. How much? When I opened the store after closing the night before and discovered the safe open, an entire deposit bag missing, $3,000 in cash, felony money gone, and no idea who could have taken it, that was the moment I asked myself if this job was worth it, if the stress was enough to justify my meager wages that were still more than I'd earned in my life. And it occurs to me that this is a feeling my father could not understand from his current upper middle class perch if he ever could. Enough. He looks at me over a 32-ounce golf ball shaped beer mug. Not you, I hope? You fucker. Not me. My phone buzzes in my pocket and I know without looking that it's either Henshaw or Lex. When I close my eyes, I can see the Manhattan skyline. The rest of the summer stretches out before me, a fast field of long nights in shambling liquor stores, bummed smokes, pills crushed on the tanks of toilets. An even greater field is at my back, cresting in a wave, wind through Indiana corn, threatening to carry me under. The Midwest loves its children, but never wants to let them go. I wish I could quit that job. No, you will not. He looks for a server. I'm not paying for you to lay around. You're going to keep working. No job, no money. My job is awful too, Victor. My job is miserable. I am miserable. If you quit that job, you're not getting one scintilla from me. Let me make this very clear. If you come and tell me you've lost your job, if I hear about any of your silly drinking, if there's any trouble involving 3 a.m. calls, if you show any signs of misbehavior of the old Victor, you can expect no further help from me. The Adderall I needed to get through this meeting was chased with the Evan Williams stash in my trunk. My coping methods for this unforgiving mushroom city and the associations I have made along the way are my business, not his. I have a flashback to surreptitiously sharing a joint with a shaggy-haired boy on the 16th hole on my 16th birthday. We had thought this fitting. My phone rings again. The number is unmistakably that of a collections agency. And then skipping ahead to chapter 4. The set finally begins, the familiar ethereal / orchestral intro winding you up, then the preliminary drum fill and chugging guitar battering you back down. That moment makes you alive. Kyle has elected to stay outside and smoke more, but the rest of us are here with bared teeth, unable to suppress the savage desire animating us. The real band, Voiding Emesis, bursts with an intensity openers can never match. Notes fly off down-tuned fretboards, backed by machine gun drums. The vocalists roar, guttering into the crowd. They are angry with us, but we're angry with them. All of us are angrier at something else, different for each, but really the same, that world outside the bar. The too big crowd packed before a low stage with no barrier between us and the band. We hit and hurt. Each of us an individual, tank top guy, beard guy, unbelievably huge guy, but really a congregation and a mob. This is a ritual. Who cares if the band is sloppy or the mix is shit? What matters is the energizing push of making us bang our heads together until we bleed. The beat drops and the mosh pit opens up. I glimpse Henshaw standing at the back, too old and cranky for the pit. He's talking up the blonde. Lex makes a point of pushing me. He's pogoing around like it's fucking 1998. Limbs swing, elbows slam, soft flesh, wet hands slide on drenched shoulders. Somebody falls and 3 of us grab him and throw him into another guy laughing. The floors are a slick fly paper of spilled beer and soda. The guys in front brace themselves against the stage so the heaving wave of humanity won't flow into the band and mess up the music. Lex's mask flies around, knocking everyone aside, met only by shorter guys who hit him low and hard. I smile and scream and feel, finally, myself. No job, no father, no me. I give Lex a fat elbow. It sends him reeling, laughing. This is why I was in such a hurry. Here is what I live for. Bodies flying, flesh smacking flesh, ritual dissolution of anger into sweat and music. The sacred rite of scrapes and bruises. I check my phone after I catch my breath. I'm hanging off to one side with the girlfriends and old timers who come to nod along. Eric has texted me again. You should see what I'm wearing, she says. It's blue. When the band hits a long solo, the vocalist drops the mic and throws himself on the crowd. We bear him up, hands above our heads in tribute. He's one of those thin, long-limbed dudes resting on his back, being passed from hand to hand. He reaches up and walks himself spider-like across those low, low ceilings as we roar our approval. We are all wet with each other's sweat and our faces are darkened in the low red light. My face connects with the back of someone's head and my lip tears. The vocalist hauls himself back on stage as the lights strobe and we all push each other, skin on skin, and I'm alive. I'm finally fucking alive again after months of dull, non-specific unease. And who cares that my name is Victor, not Vic, and I hope they can hear us in heaven, and I want to run into the night and fuck and fight and let go, go, go. In between songs, I can see Erica send me a picture. She is wearing blue, A sheer top I can see nipples through, and her lips are in a fake downturned pout. The teddy is the same color as her hair. You make me feel silly for wanting you so bad. The wave of the pit catches me again, and I'm sent skidding to the other side of the room. I feel a moment of dread for the glass screen of my phone, but it's fine. What are you going to do about it? Henshaw asks. The blonde is scooching between Henshaw and her bald-headed fiance, but they're pushing each other anyway. Henshaw is the taller and broader, the other guy firmer, smaller with a lower center of gravity. I'm finishing my second picture on the trunk of my car. My tongue pokes at the almost bleeding upper lip. The air is still warm with the long burn gasoline smell and the little crunching gravel echoes of people finding their cars. Kyle is waiting for me in mine, listening to Enya. I know how this will end. Henshaw's fucked for gas money. One time he banged one of his exes in a hotel room and just left her there to pay for it. Her husband was pissed, but luckily the couple live in Louisville. Henshaw slept with every one of my exes. He's gotten slapped countless times, been engaged twice, fired for sexual harassment, and as you know, never speaks about his troublingly brief stint in the military. What I mean is, any goodwill he has towards women comes off false. With every fuck up, it becomes harder and harder to believe that he just has bad luck or picks wrong. You start to know it's him. This doesn't get talked about because this notion would never fly in bro circles. But as I sit on the car, hollow pitcher in my hand, I'm looking at my own list of explosively failed relationships, each with their own accompanying resentment. And the sense that maybe something is wrong with me too expands. It slobbers at my ears when I look at one of the few women my age in the bar and wonder what the color and cut of her panties are like. The guy takes a swing at Henshaw. And Henshaw, the big meat wall, he blocks the arm and puts the guy into a headlock, and you can tell he's whispering in the guy's ear, telling him to back the fuck off before he actually gets hurt. He has reverted to his military ways. I can see his body language change, become hungry, bloody. The blonde and Lex try to break them up. Lex not wanting his boy to go to jail, the blonde not wanting her man hurt. I dismount the truck and leave the pitcher standing on the parking lot gravel as I get in the car. We ready to go? Kyle asks. He looks fit to sleep. Have you completed your savagery? I point at the knot of Henshaw and his adversary. Jesus, can you take me home? I'm tired and literally cannot stay here any longer. The thought of fucking Erica while her boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, wrestles a drunken biker in a dive bar parking lot fills me with perverse joy. I feel my dick harden just a bit as I throw the car in gear. Does this make me a bad friend? I don't know. Do I care? Erica and I smoke on the balcony of her apartment. I shouldn't, but fuck it. She lights and exhales, slipping her shoulder-length sideways parted hair. So Shaw ditched you. I ditched Henshaw. Oh, damn. There are new spots of pain, sucked out hickeys that hurt where my shirt brushes against them, and the nail marks Erica loves to inflict. The bruises have a duller, deeper, but no less satisfying hurt. My hearing is still fuzzy, and what a more charitable person might call thoughts in my head are mostly sighs, thumps, and growls. I shiver with pleasure in the inky night air. We didn't wake your roommate up, right? I ask. She's out. Why do you think I wanted you to come over? I get to be as loud as I want for once. Did he leave you for a girl? Do I have to answer? You always get so mad when he abandons you, Erica says. She punches me on the arm. Everyone, everything in Abbottton is hitting me. It's whatever. Not like I expect him to stop whoring around. One girl to the next. Always says he cares, never does. You're so judgmental. How am I not a whore? She smiles. You're my whore, baby. You're my favorite booty call. She looks down at her feet, then away from me and across the quiet complex. Honestly, I'm mad I had to send you pictures. I ain't have to work that hard. There is no reason for me to be attracted to Erica. She's weird-shaped, bottom-heavy with stubby legs. Her accent is a little trashy and annoying. Her job is even shittier than mine. She always smells like fry grease. She has no education in manners, wears an ugly eyebrow ring, and her manic panic electric blue hair looks cheap and shitty. I hate her tattoo, and her taste in music sucks. But I love meeting her, and every time I see her, I want to bury my face between her legs. Why do you hang around me anyway, I ask. She leans over the balcony. I don't know. I got no reason to. You're kind of mean. I want a relationship. You don't. Like, I don't even know why. You're half black, and that would drive my mom nuts. She smokes in silence for a while. Do you want me to be honest? You're reliably put out. Don't make more of this than you should. I am thinking, I say, attempting to craft something through the lingering fog of amber bog, that it would be best if we didn't do this anymore. It's kind of shameful to run around like this. I'm not getting what I want out of us hooking up. And hang on a second. I don't know what I want, but this ain't it. She leans her body against mine. I grab her right butt cheek and pull her close. She purrs a bit and I kiss her, not too hard. She pushes back with tongue. Erica's not a very good kisser, but she's enthusiastic. My mouth is very wet. As she pulls away, she bites the swelling on my lip. Your body says otherwise, she says. You ought to listen to it. I think this is the last time. Besides, Kyle seems to think that Shaw is about to take my head off over it. Oh, of course, Kyle. Can't think of no other reason why he might not want us to hook up. Kyle and I have never so much as kissed. I'm not gay. Whatever, cake eater. I gotta pee. She wraps her robe tighter around as she heads inside, leaving me in unbelted pants and no shoes to blow smokes at the moon. Somewhere in the complex, a girl shrieks and then laughs, and country music floats around. Parker Pilgrim Pharmaceuticals, America's 12th largest drug manufacturer, was founded in 1890. Originally based in Chicago, they moved to Abboton on account of being too small to afford to pay off the local government to look the other way at their blatantly illegal experiments. The first families of Abboton, the true power behind the city, they saw fit to invite them down, make them feel at home, offer them an indecent tax break and an entire population of test subjects, only too willing to make and consume their substances. As of now, they are the largest remaining manufacturer in the city, employing about 5% of the population. Through an agreement with local clinical testing centers, they employ many more as temporary guinea pigs. In 2018, A-Marie will find these notes, and she tells me they sound right, almost exactly as she remembers what we now call the longest summer. She has gotten to the end of this sentence and is called to ask if it's really true, if I could predict events with this much clarity when I wrote all this. I'll tell her that I can, but only if they aren't important. Despite mostly producing generics, they have been looking for a breakout hit. Their latest and arguably greatest is Dresdenol, a synthetic painkiller they falsely claim is less addictive than OxyContin or Vicodin. Street name is Blue Disaster, so named for both the color of the pill, Dresden Blue, and the hallucinogenic properties brought on by overuse, which can lead to bad trips. Side effects include constipation, impotence, and a disconnection from time and space itself, as you experience possible pasts and futures in tandem with your concurrent reality, sending the user into a semi-prescient fugue state where all possible moments are experienced simultaneously as a 4D hyperstructure. I am standing in Henshaw's living room, looking at the bottle of pills in 2012. I will learn about Dresdenol from a clinic doctor a year from now. But since I know it then, I know it now, even though I am yet to fall so deeply into my own mental illnesses as a result of my continued failure that I soon begin to take my continued failures as a son that I begin to take Dresdenol recreationally. The now of that longest summer is not the now of my recollection, nor is it the now of my infinitely fractured and prismatic future. I am here and there at once, and now you are too. And that's that.
That kicked ass. I really, this is a little bit different than your other writing in that it's more clearly like a long form novel and less clearly like a head trip. Like, not to say head trip the wrong way, but like a lot of your other writing is very much like situated within the consciousness of your narrator. And this is like more drawn back. It's got like a greater sense of like broader sweep and perspective, but I really enjoyed it. Like, I really think there's like a lot of shit going on here that I don't know, that I could potentially really dig. The relationship with the father like is really, really well written, I think. In that like it like reminds me distinctly of my relationship with my own dad, even though like my dad isn't an immigrant. That same like sense of like you're about to be blamed for something, you know, like you're about to be blamed for something you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and there's like no way to escape it. I don't know. I think that the personalities and interactions here are really well realized, is I guess what I'm rambling about. But yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, for sure.
And Gianluca is the only one left on the docket for tonight. Are you with us, Gianluca, or Angus? I'm never sure which to call you. Oh, you're here. I just saw you unmute.
Hey man, what's up? Sorry.
Hey, no
Yeah, I'm cool with whatever.
Cool. So I'm gonna
Okay.
put the link in the chat, and it's all yours. If anyone would like to read it, I do think we're going to have time for like a brief open mic. So if anyone would like to read during the open mic, you can say so now in the chat. Okay, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you all. Ah, gosh. This might be... Gearpug Godslog was waiting for his girlfriend. She was in her bedroom, getting ready to go to prom with him. Her father was a fellow human being, muscular and bespectacled. He was impenetrable, stoic, and rugged. Gearpuk thought to himself that if he was gay, he would probably find Orpas's father rather attractive. His white button-down shirt clung to his body. Gearpuk looked around to see the pictures surrounding the father. Every one of them featured Orpas at varying levels of development. Gearpuk looked up at the man stretched out before him. Gearpuk feared silence. It greatly disturbed him. To him it meant that two people had nothing to talk about, so should not be in close proximity. Due to this, he impulsively decided to volunteer a topic of conversation. "She's cute," he said. Replied the father. "I said she looks very cute in those photos, very innocent, vulnerable, optimistic, untainted. You know the deal." Gearpuk then considered for a moment that perhaps it was strange to emphasize how precious his daughter was to him, how at one point his protection was what allowed her to remain a child. "She still is, Barton, she still is." Fuck. He stared at one another for a moment, unblinking. "Retarded." "Please, don't hurt her," said the father, "or fuck her. Just yet. I don't think I could handle her getting fucked yet, you know." Sure, said Gearpuk. "You want to see my favorite machete? I got it at some hardware store. You can get machetes at hardware stores now. It comes with a backstory. Get injected with the blood of veterans. Now I can say that my grandfather used it to hack down foliage in the war. I'm not lying. Cool. Yeah, let's see it. Show me the knife." The father opened the closet and showed Gearpuk the machete. It was a beautiful object. "Thank you for showing it to me," said Gearpuk. Gearpuk really fucking resented the implication he was some kind of animal. And unless he was threatened, he would go straight to fucking his girlfriend. He thought about whether he would want his own daughter to be fucked. Would there be anything he would do differently if he were in such a situation? Frustratingly, it appeared there wasn't. He wondered what Orpas's father was thinking when he got into the hired limo. Was he frantically fantasizing about his daughter being taken advantage of? Gearpuk was afraid. Mostly that women had contempt for him, that they viewed him as a threat, or a boor, or a moron, something beneath them. Certainly not an individual that could appreciate their apparent depth. The thought of Orpas having similar contempt for him was one he could not bear. He knew that these were bad thoughts to have, that in a society steeped in misogyny, it was obviously understandable that women were suspicious that every man on some level was influenced by the society around them. Still, he couldn't escape the feeling that women, on the whole, viewed him as some kind of drooling ape. They thought of him as a retard or a child or a retarded child, useful for entertainment at the cost of occasionally having to be pacified. He knew that this was a pathetic insecurity. He liked women, for the most part. He was sure most women felt similarly about men. He was one of the good ones, whatever that meant. What did it take to be one of the good ones? Did it mean not raping? Did it mean being kind? Did it mean possessing basic human decency? Both stars, slap on the back. Good job, you did it. Were women smarter than men? Gearpuk supposed that he would never have the answer to such a question. He would never be able to have an objective perspective on the issue, so there's no point in addressing it. Some women certainly believed they were smarter than men. Poor little boy, God forbid you feel patronized. God forbid people don't open up instantly. Orpas's tentacle curled itself around his neck, octopus equivalent to the old arm around the shoulder, Gearpuk assumed. "Is everything all right?" she asked. "Sure, everything's great, babe," he responded. God, how could I be so self-obsessed? Can't. I agonize over people who should mean nothing to me, leaving someone who genuinely does care to squirm unacknowledged. I disturb myself. I hug her. She hugs me back. I wonder if she was aware of her father's attitude toward me. I figured it didn't matter if she is. Why is it tradition to go in a limo? All this space surrounding us. For what reason? I take one of the wine glasses filled with apple juice and gave it to Orpas. I stared at her as she drank from it. "Thanks for agreeing to go to prom with me," she said. "No problem. You want to watch Nutbag afterwards? I'd love to." "Cool, you seem really quiet. Have I done something?" It appeared she was just as afraid of silence as I was. It annoyed me, though, the assumption that she was at fault. Why would she assume that? No, obviously not. I just don't know what to say. Ah, I see. It's whatever. I apologize. No, I get it, really. Sometimes I get that. Cool. I guess we could talk about prom. It seems cool. People dancing and shit. I think we already talked about this. Yeah, we did. Fuck. Yeah, I think the conversation started with general excitement and discussion of what to wear before then moving on to the fact that we hadn't attended a prom before. That was a good conversation. Yes, it was. It was silence, or opposite a human face. Her upper torso erupted into tentacles. They were plump and heavy, slapping against her lower torso. Depressed, retarded limbs. Dental braces. I had dental braces too. I disturb myself sometimes, I really do. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if someone walked into my head. As privy to my thoughts, I imagine I would be fairly unlikable, come across as a misogynistic pervert. Sometimes to motivate good thoughts, I imagine someone else being there and watching me. It doesn't work. Every instance of self-deprecation makes me look either disingenuous or pathetic. Dental braces, I kill. It was nice of your father to book this limo for us, I said. Pardon, I said it was nice of your father to book this limo for us. It was, she smiled. She said, smiling and nodding. She appreciated that. I couldn't bear the thought of her considering me a nuisance. May I kiss you? I asked. She replied in the affirmative. I kissed her. It felt nice. It felt good that someone considered me worthy of kissing them. It gave me an immense sense of relief and power. The latter disturbed me, but it was the truth. I wondered if she was acting when she smiled and nodded like that, if she was making fun of me or just saying that so I would shut up. I told myself that she didn't have contempt for me. Why do you like me? I asked her. Why do you like me? We share common interests and find one another attractive. Okay, that makes sense. She didn't know how to respond to that. I forced a smile. She forced one back. I took a drink of apple juice. It tasted good. I don't like alcohol. It's very depressing indeed. Eris woke up in the back of the limousine with a hangover. Her driver, Beaufort, was taking a small detour due to a blockade organized by the Pepsi militia. They were on their way to a meeting between anarcho-primitivist terrorists. They had all collectively decided to detonate a bomb destroying human-occupied technological areas. Eris and Beaufort had been given a pamphlet on this event due to being demi-humans. The terrorists believed that demi-humans represented a step back from technological society. This belief was not entirely unfounded, as technological society was still predominantly designed for humans rather than demi-humans. A relatively benign example of this being that body scanners were designed for specifically human contours, and so demi-humans had to be dealt with the old-fashioned way, via metal detectors and cavity searches. It was also the belief that they represented a bridge between man and nature. Conscious devolution would then be made possible through interbreeding. Eris found this belief somewhat disparaging. Beaufort had no comment. Eris knew the police would not be interested. Police were far too busy being bought and sold, farmed out to private contractors to engage in colonial endeavors in faraway planets. In place of old primitive cultures, human-shaped technology grew. Eris and Beaufort decided to make their way there so that they could try to rationally convince the terrorists to not blow up the surrounding human-occupied area. To clarify, the difference between human-occupied areas and non-human occupied areas was less demographic one and more a question of government. People did not like to acknowledge the fact that humans consciously chose to live with their demi-humans in anarcho-primitivist sects, and human-occupied areas were controlled by the human government. Demi-humans lived in the human-occupied areas, and humans lived in the non-human occupied areas. Rejection of human technology was intertwined with rejection of human government. Reports by privately owned propaganda stations stated that humans were discriminated against in these sects, and there was no government to protect them. However, there were so many conflicting reports that nobody really knew what went on or cared. Even when photos surfaced, they were used so cynically by the propaganda stations that nobody's mind was truly changed. People who didn't want to accept such discrimination was occurring simply dismissed the photos as propaganda, which they were to an extent, argued that it wasn't that bad. If the plan didn't work, they somehow didn't manage to convince a zealous group of terrorists to abort their plans with words alone. Eris and Beaufort planned to simply take their place in the bunker and await the slow end of human society as a whole. As Eris looked out onto the street and saw the junkies, the whores, and the fatties, the backup plan became more and more appealing to her. Why do we even try? Bunch of fucking freaks, man. They disturb me, she said. Those freaks pay our bills. And your social statuses depend on the world remaining as it is. Think about it. If those perverts put us on a pedestal, we'll be no different from any other demi-human. In other words, society will be divided along the lines of race rather than class. No more excess of material possessions. No more having who you want around for sex. No more role-playing as adventurer or detective. And no more rare steak. Only ramen noodles for you, served by some theory-addled, schizophrenic teenager ready to cup your breasts and snuffle your snout. You have a direct incentive to maintain the status quo. And besides, social unrest means no. The Bachelor, replied Beaufort. You don't know that. Quite right, ma'am. The Bachelor may live on. After all, some of these misanthropic whores might want to liven up the selection process. I like it when you go on like that. Really, I suppose. The limousine ceased its motion. Within level 3 of a multi-story car park, Eris and Beaufort hot-tailed it to the skate shop known as Locus Solus. In the back room, the pseudo-clandestine meeting was underway, and Ted Thoreau was leading the Black Mass. As a reaction against the rationalism that had brought them the hyper-technological, hyper-capitalist world of today, the anarcho-primitivists had embraced the occult and magic. Technology had embedded itself into their minds, making them irreversible cyborgs. Thus, they could only manage a half-hearted synthesis. Techno-priests, old-school rationalism, had become passé due to the dogmatism inherent to such a framework. Now, even the most Apollonian, calculating, and hard-hearted among the populace could only bring themselves to identify as agnostic. Such was the tainted reputation of hardcore materialism. It seemed harder than ever to deny God existed. Everything exists, especially within the tangled knot of the human heart. The heart and soul are constantly in conflict. The soul is composed of the rules and language imposed on you before your birth, and the heart is composed of your longings and imaginings. Your heart is essentially the material result of illicit desires. If someone never had an impermissible thought, they would not have a heart, only a soul. If someone was raised as an animal, they would have no soul, only a heart. But a heart is not of much use when an individual's life is only dedicated to eating and shitting. If heart grows too big, someone may even become a rapist. Beliefs leave physical imprints on your body, and so subtly deform your corpse. There's no such thing as permanent evidence, but if a mortician or surgeon were to look closely, they would see that the corpse of an atheist is subtly different to that of an agnostic or a pagan or a Muslim. The truth is nothing exists. All is true. But we humans must utilize logic labyrinths to find the cures for what currently ails us, even though those sicknesses themselves are retroactively created by our logic labyrinths. Our heroes burst through the door as Ted lit the Black Star of David on fire. Nobody fucking move, screamed Eris. We're going to report you to the fucking authorities. They will pin your balls to a table. They will waterboard you and drive you mad and kill your families and lock you up for a real long time, added Beaufort. Indeed. The authorities? Asked Ted. Do you really think they would care about a measly one-planet genocide? Crap, they know. What do we do? Now, whispered Eris to Beaufort. Convince them by a logical argument, replied Beaufort. Okay. Ted Thoreau tore off his ceremonial robes and started rubbing himself with essential oils. The essence of Mother Earth is the essence of pussy. Nature, the maternal queen, spread those fucking legs. Let me see those child-bearing hips, bitch, he exclaimed. What are your objections to the current state of affairs? Asked Eris. I said, what are your objections to the current state of affairs? Well, it's quite simple. Techno-capital has dissolved all forms of tradition and removed our connection to nature. We are irreversible cyborgs. Only through genetic cross-contamination with demi-humans can our children have a hope of not being exposed to the technological mind virus. Surely you must admit that our world is accelerating toward disaster. We support techno-capital, not the other way around, and it is that way by design. It is a sentient creature that does not so much abhor us as subsume our will as a byproduct of its endless expansion, even going so far as to colonize other planets. The individual is incompatible with the current state of affairs. Critique is aestheticized and does nothing. The capitalist aesthetic is the aesthetic of no aesthetic at all. Take Theodore J. Kaczynski, for example. Do you think anyone would have listened to him had he not mailed those bombs? Surely you cannot be so naive. Critique without violence is useless. This is for two reasons. One, violence is the only language anyone listens to. And two, violence is inherently unmarketable, which prevents one's ideology from being aestheticized. Over time, violent ideologies receive t-shirt branding, but our stance is thankfully too young and too niche. People overstate the virtues of altruism. People should return to the noble nature of beasts, where one looks out only for one's tribe. The unbreakable bond of the in-group versus the many weak links we construct today. Don't you wish for a truly tight-knit community? One that cares about you? In our desire to be human, we have become soft and unheroic. We must forsake our altruism enforced by political correctness and the whims of capital, return to being men who care for their wives and pray to God every night. They're stifling you. Wake up. Here in our bunker, you could be a queen. You would be waited upon hand and foot by devoted concubines. You would have no worries or cares. Sure, you would not have rare steak or manicures, but you would have the love of a community. Forsake your non-existent connections with the outside world. Be with us. We know you want to stop us, but think about what you are fighting for. What are your objections to our course of action? We liberate the inferior human populace from their enforced drudgery and propel both humans and demi-humans forward into a new age of enlightenment. You know that in a couple of years they'd be eating bugs and watching nothing but YouTube anyway. So why fight for a terrible future? Why can't we dream of something more? Interesting. While the authorities are indeed uncaring, how do you think they'd react to even one of their many dominions being subverted? It would be a matter of honor to retake it. You will have killed these people for nothing. Techno-capital has already escaped into space. You had a chance when we were all still on Earth, but now, changing the system on one planet would require changing the system on all planets. Things are going faster, and things are, in fact, getting shittier. And I welcome it. I know I'll be eating bugs and premium-grade human flesh fairly soon. I know that I'll be wearing an ugly orange jumpsuit. I know that my living space will be cramped to the extent that I would not be able to stand. The thing is, I'll be too blitzed on a cocktail of mood-suppressing drugs to care. I don't care about what's real. Two things are on my mind right now: rare steak and getting my ass eaten out. The fact is, this is the world we live in. It's inescapable and self-perpetuating. You either do something with it, or you cease to exist in the meaningful sense. I have no sympathy for people who do not reckon with the world they exist in. This group could be great. Form your own sect in the woods. Love each other. Be plentiful. If you're as tribal as you say, you should have no problem saying fuck you to the rest of the world. Don't pretend to me that killing others is just or necessary. So you're saying we just leave? While you still can. While that meager freedom is allowed. Run. I don't care for your Lord of the Rings fantasy or your fascist hero obsession. You must know the very general problems you point out are known or at least felt by everyone, right? You're not special. You're not unique. You're fucking losers. You're children playing at being revolutionaries and wielding the childish weaponry of nuclear arms. Everyone looked at each other. All right then, said Ted, and they left. Wow, for someone who spouted basically nothing but nihilist platitudes, you did surprisingly well, said Beaufort. Shut up, Beaufort. My head hurts. I want to go home. I want a man to hug or a TV show to watch, something to distract from my headache. Eris flopped onto the couch at the back of the limousine and did all three safety belts so her whole body received protection. She needed to be horizontal. Beaufort? Yeah? Can you tell me a story? Sure. Have you heard the tale of Reynard the Fox? No? Is he cool? Yes, Eris, he's very cool. Sick. All right, on to chapter 3. Women, said Azdak to himself. Wow, a lot of time spent complaining about women. A lot of people complaining about women in this book. Crazy. They spend their whole time demonizing your sexuality. Every time you say, I love your titties, ma'am, they glare at you like a mother at a misbehaving child. If you're more of a bullshitter about it, they'll call you a poet. But then when you declare pure romantic love and a disinterest in sex, they accuse you of being loveless. They say you're bad for viewing them sexually, and in the same breath demand that you do so. Now, I understand that being viewed as an object is bad, but the thing is, no one wants to fuck an armchair. I want to fuck a person. I don't constantly say I love your titties because a woman's succulent breasts are but one of the things I like about her. I want to fuck you because I, as a person, have declared you worthy of my love, and you likewise. Why are you here if you do not value my love? Love manifests in sex. So to signal that I'm a human being, I say I don't enjoy sex. But again, that angers them. What the fuck? They're the ones that have got it twisted. They confuse sexual love with a desire for possession. What the fuck, bitch? Do you want to come or not? If you don't find, I can jack off. I want to be with you. It appears women want a man who has a sexual drive but never reveals it, or only does so in a way reminiscent of romantic heroes. Fuck, women are retarded. They always assume the worst. Women are the quickest to assume that you are subhuman. Men are the quickest to treat you like a subhuman, but women are the quickest to assume that you are. You know what? I think I might be somewhat of a misogynist. I really do. Got out a circular saw and started cutting some 2x4s. You know, I'm beginning to think artists are the ultimate cucks. No one cares whether a carpenter has a bad political opinion or not. Nobody cares if they were an arsonist or a mental patient or a sexual harasser. They only think, this person will give me what I want. And so the contours of the expected form of a table appear before me. All the work is in the technique. What is the point of creating anything difficult? So people can be confused? Why? You want your message out there, right? So why not make it unambiguous as possible? Why use symbolism when you can tell it directly? Why depict reality when you can use the common language already developed to send your message? Make it go down easy. I, however, am a god. When someone comes to me, they prostrate themselves before me and say, please, God, grant me a table. And I oblige. This benevolent God gives the people what they fucking want. No one has ever screamed in my face, and I always know what to do. I have never spent all my time laboring over a couple lines of a shitty poem. No, I stand above all that. I stand above the pathetic men and women who tremble before me, fidgeting and shivering. They acknowledge me, and the desire to be acknowledged is satiated. The desire everyone has, but women feel the need to break out the patronizing hand on the shoulder for. God forbid I want someone to know that I exist. God forbid I want the smallest amount of power over someone. Don't bullshit me. Don't tell me you never wanted a small amount of being in control. No, you're perfect. You're wonderful. You're a team player. I have desires I can't even say, but you can read books about hot nacho cheese, disfiguring penises. I'm the fucked up one god. You ever read porn for women? The amount of rape. I hate that shit. Porn dehumanizes. Porn rapes. Porn rapes the soul. Everyone gets mad at the artist. The artist who fetishizes their own depression and wanders in and out of a drunken haze, hoping people think they're cool. And the worst part is the adolescent fucks do think they're cool. I hate artists. I hate artists and women. I make things that are universal and accessible even to illiterate retards. I make things that everyone can understand. Artists try so hard to convey their soul, unaware of the simple truth that nobody gives a shit. Nobody. They just want entertainment, and they get it. And the worst of all, they think they received an education. They think they did something more worthwhile than jacking off or crying or calling their mother. That's the best part. The arrogance of it all. I make tables. There's something respectable about that. Everyone was a table maker. Jesus was a carpenter, after all. From my vantage point, I gaze out across all of humanity. I act as its impartial judge. I hand down whatever sentence gets me my money. You'd best believe that if the brown shirts were stomping outside, I would be singing the new Führer's praises, good judge, bad judge, Azdak. Some of you may think me monstrous. Some of you may think me inhuman. So I humbly ask you to prove me wrong. What have you, the artist, done lately? Everybody needs salvation, mumbled Eris. Well, you're certainly getting by on nothing, said Beaufort. Eris groaned. When are we getting the next part of the story? First he tricks the cat, but who comes next? I'm not gonna tell you. God, fuck off. Quit it with that coy bullshit. I know you think you're better than me. You chuckle because I'm some pathetic drunk, like you're some sitcom protagonist scoffing at his adult aunt. No, Eris, no, please. I'm sorry, please don't think that. Dear God, please don't think that. I think you're great. You accomplish wonderful things every day. I care immensely about your opinion of me. I desire your love. I desire your affection. You are a fucking beacon of light shining over an ocean of piss. Don't fucking do this to me. Okay, there was a silence. Hey, do you want to hear something funny? Asked Beaufort. Sure. Does everybody deserve salvation, though? We know we all need it, but does everyone deserve it? What about the LA girls, especially the LA girls? They get enough flack as it is. Outside, 3 wooden poles stuck out of the pavement. Obscene, irregular, arcane protrusions, wands erupting from cement. Eris followed them with her eyes as the limousine passed them by. Must be some ugly contemporary art project, she thought. She wriggled her behind as her tail was grinding uncomfortably against the faux leather of the limousine's seating. I disturb myself sometimes, I really do, she said. She sniffled before promptly bursting into tears. Beaufort pulled over. He rushed into the back. Babe, is there anything I can do? Can I have a hug, honey bunny? Sure, he laid upon her. I'm sorry, said Beaufort. I'm so fucking sorry. Love is a pathogen. To truly love someone, you must be infected with their sicknesses and understand the spirals that carve and peel their mind. You must be weighed down by another's neuroses, and that is a good thing. It's a deeper mode of interpersonal understanding that is usually available. I want to know why someone else cries. This is the platonic ideal of love. In reality, most relationships are simply two people manipulating one another, student and teacher. The platonic ideal is a kind of mutual consent to sickness. I want someone to reveal everything to me, and for me to reveal everything to them. That sort of shit doesn't exist, babe. Either the other person weaponizes your emotions in an argument, or they lie to you to make themselves look better. To me, love doesn't offer greater understanding. It only offers momentary distraction from the reality that the self is fictional. We are constructs deluded by marketing into thinking we have free will. We have no will, only each other's. You must think, you fool. No, I think you're better than me. I don't mean to be patronizing. I loathe myself. It isn't a high bar to clear. But I think you're great. I do. There are 6 cups in my house, 6 cups filled with wine. Count them, 6. And if you drink from those cups, you'll be happy. 6 cups are like when a boy gives a girl a note, or when a girl kisses a boy and he recoils, wiping the saliva from his cheek. 6 cups are like a girl asking a boy to the prom. 6 cups are innocent. 6 cups make you forget. 6 cups also lie to you. If you drink from 6 cups, you'll be happy, but you'll have drunk 6 cups of wine, so you won't know where you are. 6 cups. 6 cups will make you kiss a friend. 6 cups will make you walk backwards. 6 cups will stop you hating yourself. 6 cups standing like chalices. 6 cups make you believe in the self. 6 cups stop you hitting your head against the door frame. 6 cups resurrect the future. You do talk an awful lot of crap, Beaufort. It's what I do. Don't be cute. Shut up. Leave me alone. I'm fine now. Okay, babe. A man approached their stationary limousine. He had a pentacle necklace around his neck. He said, I am a knight. I fight for justice and chivalry. Every day I think of the princess that calls to me. I think of marrying her, but my fireplace tells me that she's a liar. I apologize. My fireplace is a big hole where Balinese dancers come alive for me. There is a gate separating me and them. I fight for the paintings and the journalists and the little boys and girls. I am shunned for my icon, and yet I wear it out of principle. A fearsome carpenter, Azdak, is seeking dominion over the soul. He is suffering, racked by insecurity. He sees no value in the pretty pictures and plastic molds. He instead slaves over identical tables. I wish to talk to him. I wish to say that one day your soul will open its gates again and it will let in all art. I wish to tell him that if you let go of his bitterness and hatred, that his lovers are just as insecure as him, that all people are inconsistent and cowardly, including him. I want to tell him that he doesn't mean that shit about Nazism, and that he only said that because he was an angry little boy, that he would serve them out of fear like everyone else would, but he would not serve them proudly. He is not as amoral as he thinks he is. He is an inconsistent judge, and he doesn't indeed not respect the good and the evil. The good and the evil are but things the powerful place on man. Man consents to these unjust laws placed on his mind. Simply say no, and these ugly lies will fall off the head like sand. I am a brave knight. I am a hungry knight. One day my leg fell off. One day the magician only had 3 wands. One day the feast only had 6 cups. One day I will trip on a stone and impale myself on a pencil. I must warn you, though, this will not end well. The world is headed for disaster. Evil will not be convinced through rational or irrational means. Life is a walking prayer. Even I disgust myself. The only thing you can do in this life is to make your neighbor's life a little less shitty. You will make a lot of people suffer pointlessly. There is no spin, no caveat, no it was worth it in the end, for it never is. I fight for little dolls and shitty movies. Do you not think I myself am a little irrational? Think, my friends, think. There is no shame in your lives being poorly written tragedies. Don't come crying to me. I have no tears left to give. Eris took off her jacket and hung it on the coat peg, revealing a bright green t-shirt with the word hyperstition written over the chest. She had arranged a date with independent filmmaker, actor, photographer, and musician Vincent Gallo. In preparation, she had gotten absinthe mixed with butterfly stomach acid, Doritos, Mountain Dew Baja Blast, Jack Daniels and Cola, 10 cups of cranberry juice arranged in a parabolic formation, and a bowl of mixed M&Ms. For dinner, she had prepared a turkey stuffed with Nutella, cream, and caramel sauce. Gazing upon those 10 cups arranged in such a symmetrical pattern gave Eris a profound sense of completeness. 10 cups function as a kind of spell. If she could get the cups in the right pattern, nothing could go wrong. I love you, Vincent, she whispered to herself. Ever since she first saw him in Arizona Dream, Eris had entertained fantasies of marrying Vincent Gallo and becoming his wife. She masturbated to scenarios in which she blackmailed him into having sex with her, and then he liked it so much that he professed his love to her, upon which she would smooch him. Soon even thinking of him would give her great pleasure, absent of any sexual context, holding hands, talking, smelling his hair, having him recoil from her creepy advances, hugging him. She often replayed fantasies of domestic life with Vincent Gallo in her mind, rewinding whenever she said or did something unlikable or stupid. However, she did this with many people. She also recognized that if those fantasies were made reality, she would be deeply unhappy. The ultimate goal of this evening would be to fuck Vincent Gallo and hug him, perhaps even watch a movie afterwards. One of his? No, that would be brown-nosing. How about the boy in the plastic bubble? She'd crossed that bridge when she got there. Rose petals had been laid in a spiral pattern on her bed sheets, with the end of the line resting in the center of the bed. She didn't know what Gallo considered romantic music, so she just put on Tales of Topographic Oceans by Yes. She enjoyed that album very much and knew Gallo was an avid Yes fan. The doorbell rang. Holy fuck, said Eris. Do you have any Jewish ancestry? Asked Vincent. No, I think we'll be using a condom anyway. I see, no semen. You paid a lot of money. Yeah, I should have specified. Indeed. You should have reminded me. Reminded you of what? To ask you whether I wanted the semen. That's not my responsibility. I'm simply providing a service, you see. You caused confusion, and now everyone's unhappy. No one's unhappy, Vincent. Keep your hair on. Eris reached out to touch Vincent Gallo's dick. Holy fuck, she repeated. It's different seeing it up close like this. It's beautiful. It's a work of fucking art. My God, it's like you were fucking sculpted, you know? You wrapped the condom around his considerable penis and then inserted it into Eris's vagina. Gallo jackhammered her pussy, causing the bed to quake. Slow the fuck down, screamed Eris. They then fell up to the ceiling and started rolling around, their sweaty buttocks slapping against the plaster. God damn it, said Eris, before pushing Gallo onto the wall, maneuvering himself up and down on his cock with her feet planted firmly on the side Twombly hanging opposite the bed. Eris felt something within her lower areas quiver, so she quickly pulled out. What the fuck, screamed Gallo. I was about to come. Certain species of mice are affected by a disease known as QB resonance, where their genitalia changes every month in a 4-step cycle. In females, it went thusly: vagina, penis, conical drill, tangled knot that redirects urine through the anus. The last one was particularly useful for traditional intercourse, but it could be tickled to great effect. Anyway, Eris's vagina closed itself up, and in its place grew a penis, which ejaculated all over Mr. Gallo. Mr. Gallo then closed his eyes and ejected himself into completion. I should probably have wrote eject himself to completion. I apologize. I'm sorry, ma'am, he said. I'm not into that gay shit. Understandable, sir. Once again, I appear to have not adequately prepared. It's understandable. Shit like this happens. It's good you're taking responsibility. Indeed. Vincent, do you like me? I mean, I came here, didn't I? I thought you were pretty. I thought you were nice. Thank you. You're not a nasty broad, you know. You're not vindictive. Your cooking sucks, though. It sucks real bad. I don't like it. One time, my pussy unexpectedly turned into a tangled knot, so the strands wrapped around my lover's cock. I didn't even feel the change. I only noticed when he started howling. Bits of foreskin bulging out in a sharp diamond pattern. It looked like that piece of London architecture, the Gherkin. I tried to pull free, but that only made the strands cut deeper into the skin. I had to call an ambulance. Was he okay? I mean, his penis certainly wasn't. He tried to sue me, but my defense made the case that my genital cycle did behave like that in the vast majority of cases, and so there's no possible way I could have known. I was pronounced not guilty. Poor fucking guy. Sure, but in most cases it only ever resulted in disappointment, so I didn't put that much planning into it. Vincent stared at her for a moment. He then leant over to kiss her. She reached over for a hug, and the gesture was reciprocated. One day, one of my clients will have Jewish ancestry. They will be blonde and with blue eyes too, he said. And then what? And then the kid will grow up big and strong like his father, and they will have media connections, and I will be able to look at them and say, I am so proud, and only I will get to say that. Jewish people don't rule the world. Whatever you say, you feel like you need to be politically correct. I say what I believe, always. You're lucky you're so hot. A cigarette floated into Gallo's hand. He smoked it. I mean, of course. You could say that of everyone beautiful. What of it? Eris shrugged her shoulders. I love you, she said, and I love your work. I appreciate that. How do you get back on the floor? You wait. All right, that's it.
That was wonderfully deranged. I love the way that you interweave like just intense world building with these philosophical monologues with like interpersonal awkwardness. It's a style unlike any I've ever seen before, and it's just so unhinged and hilarious and thoughtful, and I love it. It's awesome. Thank you, man. Thank you for reading.
Thank you, man.
So it's going to be open mic time now. I have to run to the bathroom though. I'm gonna run to the bathroom. I saw that Ryan wanted to read. If anyone else wants to read during the open mic, just put it in the chat and I will be back in 5 minutes.
Should I read? I don't know. I guess I should, since it's like dead air. Otherwise, or the other person can. Oh, I don't know. Okay. Yeah, it was Paul that wanted to read. So.
Yeah, it's me.
Yeah, you can go first. Sorry. Sorry for jumping on.
My name's actually Gabe. I'm still on my dad's account whenever I'm on this computer. Yeah. This is one of the things. I just felt like reading one of the things that I'm working on that's not for Hollow House, and that probably of anything I've ever worked on, I have the least idea what to do with. It's also very much in progress, so by the time it's anywhere, it might look completely different from this, but I've been working on it for a while. Just a setup here. 6 months after our first sex education classes, we learned the true nature of that tyrannical era our grandparents still remember, the era of the videotapes. By then, we are at the upper end of the age range of the children the rulers of the world did those things to and recorded them so they could make their secret promises under threat of revealing the hideous acts of those who broke them. Of course, there were other reasons they did those things, the old magical breaking of taboos to assume divine status, the rights of sovereignty. Every historian has their theories, but mine was a game theory crank and lived through that perplexing period of the revolution when, though the power of the men who made it was broken, the sovereignty of those videotapes, perhaps the most hideously powerful fetish objects ever created, remained. The problem went like this. International police first reported the videos seized, but as months went by and we waited to hear official reports of who was in those videos and what acts, while more and more stories from victims spread, frantically suppressed as unverified and inflammatory, and those they named began to strut confidently on the world stage again, we came to the conclusion that the international police could not be trusted. A revolutionary tribunal formed and seized the videos from the police, and in the coming weeks, several other sets from the homes of billionaires and trillionaires, supposedly different from those the police had obtained, emerged. They moved quickly and made citizens' arrests based on the contents, or at least what they said were the contents of the videos. Some of famous billionaires and trillionaires, some of surprisingly ordinary men and women, cameramen and foster traffickers, that they had the right to make these arrests and that they had access to the videos were the same right, the same authority, no less than when the police took orders from the politicians who took orders from the people who had access to the videos. The irony was not lost on that age's bitterest satirists. But what to do? No one, least of all the victims, wanted the videos made public, available to anyone, whatever their sick motives, sex, pity. No one trusted anyone who said they should be destroyed, the perpetrators who hadn't been rounded up yet allowed to cut their losses and run and make more. They passed through 3 revolutionary governments of substantially different organizational structure and principles guiding who could access such secrets, the closest to solving the problem, one in which the videos could only be seen by temporary juries, which would soon become the model of the justice system of most of our cities and complexes around the world, before a surviving victim who asked specifically that his name not be recorded by history. though it was known to every commenter on the internet at the time, shattered both taboos in one by leaking his own video to the internet, then burning the entire horde. Not only was it simple for all of us to fake our way through sex education class, we didn't even feel like we were doing it. When in the privacy of a therapy booth, we were shown drawings of naked children by then 3-4 years younger than us. We could tell they weren't drawn by anyone with an inkling of what we were aroused by, what we felt. I wasn't lying when I said I wasn't attracted to that, and if they couldn't be bothered to present me with something I was actually interested in, they didn't have the right to pry into budding feelings. That was consistent with how everyone who wasn't a needy therapist's pet thought about the booths at that age on every other issue. Although Yumi and Gaura weren't like that by anyone's reckoning and confessed those feelings out of an appreciation of their seriousness, they wouldn't hold over us even now, because look what good it did them. But in retrospect, wasn't my reasoning a bit like Shima's? This assumption of something irreducible that's more dangerous than I thought then. If we couldn't even settle for a simulation that wasn't up to our standards, why would we settle for a simulation at all? Maybe they should do the test with 2 pictures, and if someone picks the bad one, you can assume they're not dangerous at all. Although I never knew what Shima did in that test. They were the only one who never talked about it. We're all just waiting for Yumi to get back to us about the emergency meeting. It's been almost a day and no word from her, no sign she's alive. I put out 5 cigarettes in the past hour on the sill of this window where her pigeon would land, though she doesn't like to send them out in the rain, and the rain looks like it won't stop until this evening at least. The same cloud is covering the whole complex, which is rare in my experience of watching clouds from this eyrie of an office. Patches of blue bleed through in places, like light filtering down to the bottom of the ocean. Myself, I don't mind the rain, even it's brushing my shoulder that leans on the windowsill when the wind shifts slightly in my direction, but mostly it falls straight down, light enough that however long it's been going, you can always see a new coat of spots forming on miles of drying concrete. I knew I would one day work up here because I love to walk up here, but now that I work up here, I hardly do. I like to see the water put out the still smoldering tip of the cigarette, the total change of state, light falling in black clumps, something from nothing and nothing from something at once in an embarrassed switcheroo. Maybe this too I should be suspicious of. Someone knocks on the door. Beige hasn't been decorated since this wing of the complex was built. The previous occupant shared my tastes, not those ones. I slouch over and turn the doorknob without saying anything, my long brown knitted shawl that covers almost my whole body, and its official's patch trailing on the floor. There's been a power failure in Sector 6 for 3 hours now, the man, rare to see one here, probably already stringy hair clinging and dangling before his eyes with sweat from under his Sector 6 public handyman's hat that looks like a book laid down, gasps, congestion rattling in his nose. We'd have told you sooner, but there haven't been any pigeons since 11:10. Nowhere, to no one in the city. I saw it on the grid. I glanced back at my blinking map of the entire complex and sent people to connect you to the 12th battery. You must be tired coming all the way here. Do you want tea or brandy? I should probably be worried that she's killed herself. She never had those kinds of problems before, one of the few of us who didn't, but these are exactly the kind of circumstances in which someone who didn't would. I just constitutionally can't bring myself to worry about those kinds of things. I don't react emotionally to things I don't know are true yet, however likely or unlikely or joyful or horrible. They all exist in the depths of the same black grumbling sea. And that too brought me here, and still. What does worry me is how much longer I'm going to wait here. It'll be hard to get us all together without the pigeons. And to my surprise, the man from across the room from me, hunched and holding his cup with both hands, periodically looking over at the old gramophone on which I'm playing Medner. Even though I have the luxury of a computer, I prefer the sound. Whether because he appreciates or is too shy to ask to change the music, I can't decipher. His deference curdles in me like old spit. I suppose I would never have missed it anyway, which is probably different from the kinds of acclaim some of us, the artists and orators, have earned. But I feel very palpably that I don't have the right to it, and while that's not quite the same as worrying about someone, it's still since I'm only feeling it now, somehow preemptive. I stay here into the night, which always comes disorientingly as I'm not on the side of the complex facing the sunset, although with this cloud cover there wouldn't have been much of one anyway, and the transition from light to dark just feels like the bottom dropping out of the sky's stomach and starting to swirl. An exteriorization of what's happening in my own body. 2 more visitors come, none from as far. Finally, a night flight pigeon lands, an exteriorization of the fluttery startlement of waking up after not realizing you were asleep. The patterned stars of gas lamps among the gardens on the roof blink in the waving of leaves in a wind I haven't noticed rising. The folded up paper is from Gaura, their writing is always going all over the page. Yumi hasn't shown up yet and the aviaries have been deputized. We're all being summoned to the library, to the chapel without her. Now the worries contracted my world in its tunnel vision. Partly it affects me now. If Yumi's alive somewhere and breaking down, if she lets something out on her own terms, we may not have the luxury of deciding how to put an end to this. I straighten and unstraighten convulsively as I sit up, take the brandy none of my visitors touched from the fridge, pour it, sit down tense on the edge of my chair ready to stand up again. I almost forget the pigeon is still there on the windowsill waiting for a return letter, which I quickly scrawl. Then I am ready, as I had been for a split second before losing my nerve, to go out the door. After the clanking square spiral staircase of this spire, its central skylight casting dim non-light around the niches of lamps in the concrete walls, the echo of 2 materials the biggest thing in here, like following and being followed at once by a parade of yourself. I don't take the furthest door north, which leads directly to the library's wing, but the 3rd door north, and after a few convolutions around the other corridors, find myself in a broad and well-lit thoroughfare where even at this hour someone is always visible, pushing a cart, dragging a stack of papers under their arm. And in place of human faces, I can look at the faces on the walls, painted on pitted concrete that affords no subtlety in primary colors and neons and pastels, shadows distended in spreading pseudopodal cells around spikes of hair, painted chins, slight slopes of noses, star pool eyes. This art style, practically civic here, was invented by and for people like us. But then for all I know, these murals were painted by people like us too. Some of them must have been, and many weren't, and the 2 are woven together by resonances of color and congruities of line to the point that, without paying more attention than I am capable of, I can't tell where one artist ends and another begins. Skirts billow like shells, pure pearl knees, and monochrome energy auras switch back from line to curve, acute angle to waveform. It is a long time since I have been emotionally affected by this hallway, if I ever have, but its charge in me right now feels like unbearable static. The murals and the passerby with their night gray gazes disappear behind a tall polished door. I have to flash my ID at a mirrored glass booth to enter. From there, I walk almost as long in what I vaguely recognize as a spiral of narrow halls that haven't been repainted since the complex was built, and innocuous stairs that descend no more than a shoulder's height at a time, although occasionally the corridors open onto catwalks over a vast space crisscrossed with catwalks. Eventually, I arrive at the brig. There is a large waiting room with plants and wall scrolls, a place more suited to public occupation than the ones that led here, but it is only lit by a single light and attended by a single guard. Since visiting hours are over, the recording equipment that records every conversation within its mirrored walls and converts them to publicly accessible files is also off, feeding power back into the grid. The guard, of course, assumes this latter function is more relevant to my presence here than the former. I shine my flashlight through glass cell doors. Some eyelids twitch, some shoulders twist or heads turn, until the beam settles on Shima's oily black bangs, which cover their eyes like a natural sleeping mask, the other half of their face nestled in their crossed arms. So well, I worry they won't notice as I keep the beam fixed. 30 seconds, a minute, but finally they do, blowing a strand away from beneath with a burst of breath and tipping their head from side to side until there's enough of a gap to notice me and crinkle their eyelids in confusion. Their hair is all black now. I suppose the metallic pink dye streaks must have been washed out according to some brig policy. I didn't think we did stuff like that. I'd honestly never thought to ask about it. They look in a way like some child or adolescent photograph of themselves. 2 seconds. Where's the thing I inserted here? It takes me half a minute to recognize that they're not sleeping. They're reclining on one side. They're utterly still. Their hair makes it hard to see their mouth moving. Nothing else in their face moving along with it. But when I turn on the intercom, it's picking up snippets of a melody. I turn the light off to not interrupt them, turn the volume up, something about it giving me shivers in a childhood place that shouldn't be possible to feel here, like a detail you focus on in a dream that the whole scene changes around. At the age of 14, he was a married man. At the age of 15, the father of my son. At the age of 16, his grave, it was green, and death had put an end to his growing. They trail off, notes disconnected even as I turn it up loud enough, the intercom up loud enough to hear their breathing, which deepens and roughens into obviously fake snores. My brow furrows, I smack myself mentally. I turn the light on.
That was awesome. I missed a big chunk of it, so I didn't get the full context, but I really enjoyed what I did here. And I loved your delivery of the singing bit. That was, I'll have to ask Brandon here how he felt about it, but it had powerful, like, Irish brogue kind of.
Yeah, it's from an Altan song. I can link the actual song. It's a clue to stuff that happens later in the story.
Oh, cool. You should do that. You should do that.
Yeah.
But thank you, Paul. Thanks for reading.
I don't know when this story is ever going to come out in any like meaningful form. I'm thinking of putting it in a collection that it would possibly like sink the entire collection of.
I think my cat liked it too. He just hit me and screamed. I don't know if that's a positive or a negative comment. I guess we won't know. But thank you so much for reading, Paul. Ryan, you're up next.
Gatorade Zero.
Hi.
Hey, Ryan.
Okay. I'm good. Okay, so this is just from the thing I've been working on that's been like just taking like all my energy. So I'm just gonna post it here. The only context I think that it needs is that like I've kind of hopefully established by this point in the story that like socially things are like kind of weird in my setting. So I just when I was writing this, I kind of explored it, and I wrote it because like the plot seemed to call for it, but I was kind of hoping for like some readings on like how well it worked or whatever. So this is tentatively titled Token Service. Sariana's step is full of resolve, though her hands hang loose by her sides, as if, having seen what she's seen, she'll never honor the fates for the weight of their design. She is still Sariana, girlroyd who has broken free. Her movement is sure, but her steps skim the black concrete as if dragonfly over water. Pressing her palm now to the screen of a machine. The machine a black slab, lithic in its mass, sloping to allow the controls their birth in charcoal chrome. Its green is a glaze of light, its sprites be held by Elise as if in painting. In sparkling tableau, they dance and bob in place, in cascades of pixels like meteor showers in the rainfall. As if this machine centers, arcade name, with its presence, and in its presence gives life to that which can never be on any other surface, on any other machine, because the machine's else in gray and silver, but this one the black of starless sky, and its sprites, Elise sees, unmarred by facet of cloth. They differ in shade, but all marked by curl of wing. They wield weapons, blades and staves. Curses blink over their heads, in and out like code. Elise thinking again of the desolate metronome that has left her. left her, and gone where. But Sariana's eyes now the cold blue shine of access, her wrist bathed in light, setting off what she has for bone. Her brows furrow into a cold frown. Shit, it's fighting back. Fighting back? Can a machine fight? But as her eyes settle over the fierce flicker of pixels, they seem to be drawn to the screen's liminal edges, some effect making her more aware of, despite the movement of the Fae, the black chrome of the machine. And from that presence she senses an intent, one arrived with the seasons it's known. Yes, she thinks, staring at the ripple of dark fabric across Sariana's chest. Yes, a machine can feel, and a machine can fight. Don't crowd her, Kai says in her ghost buzz. I want to help, Elise says. A moment of silence. Then, hush, Kai. And turning to Elise, yeah, there's something you can do. You can play the game. She shrugs. Girlroids can't play games. It's how we're wired. Her eyes whir to Elise's left. You need a token. Elise gestures with her open palms. I don't have any Zenny. Kai's voice is if musing. The keeper will be Otaku. You're a girl. You can work it. The keeper stands silhouetted behind a long bar of sleek darkwood whose grains she can eke out in the weak flush of light. The keeper himself set in shadows, a slim dark figure with an oval-shaped head and a beard whose bristles frame his face like a crown of thorns. Elise swallows down a shiver. Still Sariana has asked her for this. Turning back to Sariana's ice-gray eyes set in the porcelain frame of her face. Behind Sariana's askant look, the machine dwarfs her body, so that she looks like some priestess of some high altar. Okay, Elise says, more whisper than word. Then she thumbs her hands into her pockets and begins to walk to the bar. As she does, the light seems to die a little, so that her sight misses the black of her new sneakers, as if she is held by no feet and no body, but billows into the darkness with her sweater, like Banshee, cloaked by gown of a silk more other than fabric, more void than either of these. The keeper's eyes rise on steady incline to meet hers, the pit stop at her chest subtle but extant. Yeah, he says, a different breed of otaku, one in some effect designed to keep the keeper's dower, though inward they must carry the same bliss, or they'd end it for themselves. A pretense, then, a dark front of soured flesh over blood brimming with silent joy. Could use a token, Elise says, as if the words are not her own. The need is not her own. But I'm out of Zenny, standing there, then, in the pale light, shifting her body so her folds catch the accent of her contours. Faint shine of leer in the keeper's eyes, though he keeps it guarded. Seen by Elise and how his pupils shift, a tremor of growth that betrays the clockwork of his mind. When he speaks, the otaku stammer is there, but cloaked in casual language. Cute girl like you doesn't always need Zenny. That's what I figured, Elise says. What will it take? The words stay easy breezy. Some midriff girl. Flaunt it if you got it. Elise knows she shouldn't. Yet hers is now an unstained body. The ivory of her skin veiled by the folds of her sweater could be more to her now. Could be a tool, a light in the darkness when she's out of other means. Her conflict lasts mere moments. Then she raises her sweater, stopping the bunch at her chest, its folds now etching her chest in greater presence. The keeper drinks her in, a long searching stare as if trying to see through to her heart. The lacquer of his leer is like pastry glaze, the kind you'd find in any Vanta Black cafe. She can feel it probe along from chest to navel and back, scraping at her torso like stripping the sand and rock from ancient bone. Until in the end he's sated, that chaser sated that will pang again in minutes. She stands there, waiting. In the darkness her midriff glows like Luna in the black velvet of the sky. She waits until the keeper reaches below the dark top of the bar, comes up with a token that he flips at her as if to belie a hidden angst. His last chance to see midriff until the next one comes along, and few will come into this place of old machines. None but the true, the blooded with game, and those may be more careful with their skin, may exact the Zenny in its plastic black like a token to ward off the impure designs of a creeping stranger. Staring at him, shrouded in black, the token caught an absent reflex. She thinks that chance will not come for some time, and she can see it in his eyes, the fear of it, knowing in that fear other aches and needs such as those she's seen in her meta-children's gaze even as the last flickers of light left it. Thanks, she says, and tries to keep her walk off a saunter, though peeking through, she's sure, is the nerve of her feels, as if bared from her skin and cut or sever. Okay, that's it.
That was great. I've said this before, but I love your world building so much. And it's integrated really well here. Like all of your world details are kind of intimated as the plot moves along. You don't get bogged down in it, but it stays kind of present there and rich. And I enjoyed that, you know? I think Rudy has something to say too.
Yeah,
Or Amy Rose.
I like how the innuendo is really kind of integrated with all the like weird vibes of like technology and like all the other like weirdness. It's got like it's really got a weird like vibe to it that I love, and some of the language like girlroids, I really love that.
Girlroids is a concept taken from just like one of Kenji Suratori's prose, where the concept of a boyroid comes out, and comes up a lot, and I just sort of flipped it to girlroid just for the purposes of the story. But thanks. Yeah, I was really wondering like if that worked and if it like didn't go too far or whatever or any of that shit. I don't know. So
yeah, no, it was awesome.
Thanks for the nice words and stuff.
Yeah, no, thank you for reading, Ryan. Thanks so much. Sam's up next, I think.
Hello.
Hey, Sam.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. Do I sound okay? No, I won't. Can you hear?
I can hear. Oh, boy.
All right. All right. All right, that's it.
God damn, throw your fucking lighters up, everyone. You fucking killed it, man. You
That was
fucking killed it.
incredible. Absolutely incredible, man.
Holy shit. Holy shit.
I forgot to turn my camera on.
I didn't. I thought that was like for effect. I thought you wanted us to just soak in the music here. God damn.
It's got like a Johnny Marr type solo or guitar break at the end. I wrote it like 4 years ago, but I can't figure out a melody for singing.
Shit, damn, you wrote the piece of music yourself then.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that's fucking amazing, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. What do you call it?
I don't have a name for it.
That's great, though.
Yeah. That's probably the best thing I've written, though.
Yeah, awesome.
I love it. I love it. Man, if I had known you were going to play something, I would have let you play us out. Shit. Now, Rudy, Dan had
Next time.
Yeah, next fucking hell yeah. Next time. Rudy, had Dan signed up?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And he's the last one on the list right now, right?
Yep, I believe so.
Okay, so I think we'll call it a night after Dan. But yeah, Dan, it's all yours. Josh? Dan says Josh in the chat, but I don't.
That's. Yeah, looks like Josh has a phone.
I had put what before, but it's okay. I don't have to. I mean.
Oh shit! Yeah, no.
Oh, sorry, Josh.
Dan will go, and you'll go, and we'll end the night after you. If you had said something, then.
Sure. Yeah. No, I did. I actually did follow the protocol. I've been very well behaved. Very quiet.
Okay. We'll get you in at the end then, Josh. Okay, Dan, it's all yours.
Okay. This is from like a pre-cyberpunk young adult thing that I started working on last year. So this might rekindle the YA debate. There's no sex in it though, because I'm not that brave. This is called Root. I have to flash the stick and poke tattoo of the word nowhere on my right wrist whenever my friend asks me where I'm going. Outside the emergency parking square, the clouds roll over the mountain range on the outskirts of the city. The highest natural point in this territory is barely visible, between the gaps left in the skyline by cranes and an ocean of concrete, glass, steel, and neon. I don't hear the siren before the ambulance slides around the corner, but it barely nudges my attention from the concrete beneath my feet. Medics unload a guy with a padlock-sized plasma burn in his stomach while he spits up oil-colored blood. He reaches for my arm while the white shirts rolling past me, but I flinch. He's got a tattoo of an eye on fire over his heart, visible beneath the smears of juice. It's surprising they even bothered bringing him here. Usually the price X piled him up onto a flatbed and dump him in the water. In the hallway, there's domed glass running down the length of the ceiling above. The sky is gray and getting darker. The ward is mostly steel and bulletproof panels. The door frame is reinforced concrete, and a retina scanner sits on a telescopic platform to the left. The bulletin panel to the right of the door fades in and out through a slideshow of smiling faces interspersed between group therapy announcements and a special events calendar. After I look into the camera, the door clicks a few times before sliding open, just enough for me to slip through. At the far side of the room next to a window, a woman with a sagging blonde mohawk sits in a thin aluminum seat bolted to the cement floor. She's wearing a sleeveless black top and has a colorful tattoo from her wrist to her shoulder. In her hands is a waterfall of wool pouring from her knitting needles into her lap and then onto the floor. The flesh on her leg stops above her knee. There's a curving, rusty, military-looking prosthetic a few generations obsolete fused to each thigh. She doesn't look up from her project, even though I see the glass in her eyes flicker. One of the nurses smiles and waves me up to the intercom before motioning to the clear airlock between the nurses' station and the pit of light blue linoleum that contains people like my dad. I toss my backpack into the little airlock and back away from the box. They don't usually bother searching my bag or pockets, but all that's in there are some rotting carrot sticks I keep forgetting to throw away. The nurse's station is a massive bomb-proof translucent cube made of the same material they use to make windows and windshields for the forces and private security companies. I've looked it up. What happened? The nurse lets out a sharp sigh. She's almost as tired as I am. The medic team found him wandering through traffic. The nice nurse motions to the back of my father's head in the Serenity Garden. That's it. He knew one of the first responders and they talked to him. He admitted he stopped giving himself his injection. Every patient gets a plastic wristband with nothing but a simple QR code. The ward staff scan the code to bring up a medical record, a history of the patient's vitals, and dietary restrictions. Is he taking care of you? Yeah. You're not going to get in trouble if you say no, Taurus. When I was younger, I might believe you. The nurse comes out of the cube and shoos away a skinny old guy with his ass hanging out of a light green gown. What do you mean? The guard with a motionless face watches the patients and their visitors from the doorway to the small courtyard. The nurses and orderlies started adding armored riot gloves to their uniforms like the Prysex wear. Some patients are bitey, or they punch and kick. Everyone in these places pretends to be my friend, pretends to have what's best for me in mind. Torsten, we are here to help. Then help. Fix him. Stop him from drinking. Don't interrogate me. We're not interrogating. When I was a kid, the Prysex would show up, toss him into the cage in their back seat, and then sit me down out of earshot. They'd spend hours promising they would help, as long as I could help them point out different people in the neighborhood. They'd ask me if I'd seen different vehicles on the street, and I used to tell them until I knew better. The Serenity Garden is really just a courtyard next to the ward. The high brick walls keep even the most motivated patients from escaping. The nurse crosses her arms over her chest. Torres, I promise I won't ask again, but I need your help right now. Why? He won't take his injection, and legally we can't let him leave until he does. You want me to convince him to take his injection. That's all we need right now. But if you ever need a stable place to live while your dad gets well, you can tell us. I'm tired of them telling me my dad just needs to get well. I'm tired of them trying to drag me out of the house and into some recycling plant for orphans. I look out into the square of tiled stones, benches, and plants. It's more crowded than usual. One person in light green pajamas meditates in front of the fountain. Okay. Thanks, Torres. The nurse turns her back to scuttle back into her cube. The transparent panel slides open to the courtyard automatically. Following the curved lines of the brickwork around the planters is disorienting, and by design. My father has a pillow clutched to his chest and a fabric bag full of clothing hanging from his clenched fist to the side of a small bench. People behind me are Persian. I don't even bother thinking about what he said before I sit down beside him. The nurse says you refused an injection. I know what they are saying. His shoulders roll forward and he folds his hands in his lap. What are they saying? Guerrier Tonder. What does that mean? I watch my father's spirit leave his body for a second to consult with the ghosts that live inside him about what to say next. Cry thunder. It's possible to smell the rain clouds forming. When the air begins to dry, storms have a taste. What does that mean? I've caught them point at me when they say it. Why do they do that, Dad? I shouldn't even acknowledge the dream world he lives in. Cold water hits the back off my neck and falls down my spine. I can't tell you. I've heard that before. His pale skin becomes flush, a sign that he's starting to lose control. I forecast my father's internal weather because it keeps things manageable. Don't take any of this seriously. What? This is just a big game. There's a light blue blizzard in his good eye. Visibility is low, but I see exactly where in his mind he fights. I know. He says, "You don't," and it sounds a lot like a chair dragging across the floor to hold a door open. Behind his head, the concrete wall darkened into a gradient from the rain. My mom told me my dad was crazy the day she left, but now I know better. They tried to convince me to forget. They've tried to force me to forget, but I won't. There's a waterproof case he hides under the couch he uses as his bed. It hides behind empty liquor bottles and spent brass he saved. There's a number carved into every shell casing. I've cracked the box and it's full of uniforms, but underneath the layers of green, black, and gray fabric, there are a stack of photographs with love letters to my mom on the back. If you won't forget, then why not take your shot? I have my reasons. They're going to send me to live with someone else, Dad. I can close my eyes and see every picture so clearly. There's a picture of him on the streets of free Taiwan. They won't. There's a picture of him knee-deep in snow with his face covered by a beard full of ice. Dad, please. There's a picture of him smiling with his arms around the shoulders of a man with a head wrap in the desert. In every picture, there's a weapon in his hands. Torsten, I need you to trust me. Trust you with what? He looks into the water rippling at the bottom of the fountain. I will never be able to tell you everything. Why? Everything I say must be broken into words. Every word must be spoken exactly the way I heard it. Dad, you need to take your shot. His memories live around a burnt-out city at the center of a snow globe. All it takes is a little shake and he disappears into the white. He tells me he can't get the smell of cordite out of his nostrils. I don't know. I hear him and I'm paying attention, but I don't understand. The nurse says you can't leave until you take your injection. And if you don't take it right now, you won't see me again. Don't. The sound of water falling is the only thing able to bring my dad back into the present. At home, I turn the kitchen taps till just a slow but steady stream comes out. I don't get why the doctors don't have a small fountain installed at our house so that he can sit by it when he starts to lose control, instead of going through the ritual every month. Deep lines of raised red tissue slice their way across his face and disappear into his gray and red beard. We are more still than the patient meditating beside us on the concrete. We are father and son of stone. He leans forward and the wood pendant around his neck swings free and hangs below his exposed throat. There's a crude carving of a man with a spear on one side and a wolf's head on the back. I've never seen him without it. He nods, grabs his bag, and stands up. Hunched, he avoids eye contact with the guard while handing him the hospital pillow. I see him glance at the woman with the rusty legs, and her eyes flicker again. Do you know her? His lips freeze as two nurses and an orderly come out of the secure booth carrying a long needled syringe with a molded pistol grip. The steel frame has a strip of beige tape across the side with the word judgment written in black ink. Sickening fumes waft around the room from the gel the nurse rubs on the side of my dad's neck. Ready, Varnon? He looks up at me and says, kind of. The nurse buries the needle in his skin, clicks the trigger, and it's done. And that's it.
Damn, tonight's been the night of like great works of world building. There's been so much good world building tonight, but I love this piece because it's so intimate. Like often when you think of like cyberpunk or you think of genre fiction, the focus like feels like it's on the world or on the action or on the plot. But here it's so completely grounded in the interpersonal relationships and the anguish this person feels over like what's going on with their dad and all that. It's really good. It's really great. Really great. Thank you, Dan.
The genre fiction starts out like every genre starts out kind of the same way, like pulpy, but then it just takes like a slow burn of people who are very interested in the genre to kind of flesh it out, right?
Yeah.
Scorsese is an example of like the mafia movie from like the 40s and 50s and 60s being elevated to the point of like high art.
Right.
Yeah.
You have The Godfather, and then you have Goodfellas, and on and everything Scorsese made. You know, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I really like the focus on the father relationship with the child. That's like the center, like especially for a young adult piece, to center it around that to start out with, and so like the kid's like relationship with like the world, or like being oppressed by the world, but they're kind of being like he's dealing with his own situation with his father. Like that's really cool.
Thanks.
I really like that, and I there was a part in there with this where the syringe came out and had like a pistol grip on it. That was really badass. I really like that. The weapon, totally weaponized syringe.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dan. All right, Josh, it's yours. The night is yours. You get to end this thing.
Yeah, we were talking about world building. I guess I'll do some world destroying now. My world, self-destructively. But no, I don't like writing. I don't like writing prompts typically. That's why I really liked when Misery Tourism opened up the unthemed months. And by the way, yeah, we'll be good to go for the next one. So if you're still cool with that, then we'll do that. But yeah, so I saw the Daily Drunk had they were putting together an anthology. And so as much as I don't like writing prompts, I love being in print. And so they were putting out a print anthology, and it was on the topic of video games. And it's not something I really have much to say, and I do have memories, as anyone my age might have growing up, but I just wasn't a gamer. But I actually had been thinking about this one anecdote from my childhood, and so I wrote the poem, and then I realized as I just finished the first draft, this is the first draft, it might change a bit, that the deadline had passed, so I can't submit, but I got something out of it. I wrote a thing, so that seems good. So I'll just go into it now. It's called Killing Dale Earnhardt. People are always so sure that they can trace the origins of a troubled person, like a school shooter, to hours spent playing some RPG or maybe enacting violent fantasies against women in Grand Theft Auto. By this logic, I think childhood psychologists should have been alerted to some kid I knew in my suburb growing up. It was a summer afternoon, and it had to have been the year 2001 because earlier that February, NASCAR legend Dale Earnhardt was killed during the last lap of the Daytona 500 as he took the final bend in his signature black stock car. The reason this detail is important is because the kid was playing NASCAR on Nintendo 64 with a friend, and Dale Earnhardt was still a driver that you could select to race as. And also because the kid was repeatedly smashing Dale Earnhardt into the fourth corner of the simulated Daytona 500 instead of just doing laps like you were supposed to do. Eventually, an adult noticed what was going on, how the video game was being misplayed. If you're going to do that, I'm going to make you turn the game off, said the father of the kid who was not massacring late NASCAR driver Dale Earnhardt in a holocaust of pixels and primitive CGI over and over again. What kind of kid does that? What kind of man do they grow up to be? Me. I was that kid. I killed Dale Earnhardt like 17 times that afternoon.
I love it, Josh. I fucking love it. I've never had exactly that experience, but Rudy and I have both had plenty of experiences like that with video games.
Yep.
And that spoke to something deep inside my soul.
Yeah, the part where like the dad is like, you're not to turn that off if you keep fucking around that way. That speaks to me personally, because I remember the first time I played Zork Nemesis, I think or not Zork Nemesis, it was Return to Zork. I'm sorry, which was an adventure game where you typical pixel hunt, use the items the right way or whatever. I kept killing people, and I remember like this after you killed someone in that game, this Native American guy would come and take your items away, and I remember my dad caught me doing it once, and he's like, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be playing the game that way. I'm going to take this away if you do that.
So yeah, so it's believable.
It's real. Yeah, no, that's definitely real. That's great. I love that piece.
I always loved these. I used to play a lot of card games, but I never played them properly. And that one was a particularly sadistic moment. But I also did, in these Need for Speed games, there was these, lush environments with these beautiful cars. And I would just kind of hang out. Like, you know what I mean? Like I would not participate in the race. I'd just be kind of like, pulling over the shoulder, pretending I'm actually in like a Porsche, and I'm just, this is my adult life, just driving around. I don't know. Yeah.
No, that was sick. I love that.
That's what they call emergent gameplay.
Exactly.
Peak experiences of gaming are all about emergent gameplay. Playing the game like it's not intended to be played. And if the game lets you do that, that speaks to the value of the game.
Exactly.
Whether it's kill or something more benign.
It was bad. I mean, yeah. But thank you. I'm glad you guys like it because that was the first one. I'm upset because I actually think it had a shot at the anthology, and whatever. It'll be in the book, and I got another thing for the book, so that's fine. But
cool.
Do you remember which Need for Speed this was?
No, so this was actually the poem was for NASCAR. It was like NASCAR 2000 or NASCAR 2001. But the Need for Speed that I would play in the way I was describing was Need for Speed 2 SE.
SE. Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
It had the really weird niche cars. It had the Isdera. It didn't just have mainstream cars. Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah. I think it also had a dinosaur. I think you could drive around. That was the one I remembered.
Those games were awesome. I remember Hot Pursuit. Good stuff.
Yes. Oh yeah, anything with cops. Wait, this is being recorded still, so I won't say anything.
And on that note, okay, we're gonna end this for tonight. As usual, I'm gonna keep the Zoom call open so people can hang out and bullshit or whatever. But this has been Misery Loves Company. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, we do this every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. We tweet out the link at Misery Tourism. That's the account. You follow us. See the link. Anyone's welcome to come. Anyone's welcome to read their work. Anyone's welcome to lurk and watch. What the fuck ever. All right. So maybe if you're watching this later, stop by sometime. That's all I'm saying. Fuck it. We're done here.